Welcome back to our channel. Today, we will explore a new case, the case of Nohema Graber. When a student at Fairfield High School received his Spanish test results, he found that his entire exam had been marked in red pen. He had failed because received a low grade. He was furious in front of his classmates, but the teacher reassured him, stating that she believed in his abilities and that he just needed to prepare better for the next test. Little did the elderly woman know that this would later have a tragic effect on her life. Fairfield is a small, quiet town in the southeastern part of the state of Quince, with a population of around 99,000 people. It features beautiful architecture and has about 12 parks and recreational areas, which is a significant number for a town of its size. One of these parks was a favorite walking spot for teacher Nohema Graber. She followed a daily routine of taking a certain number of steps to stay active and maintain her health, enjoying the tranquility and beauty of nature. However, on November 2, 2021, after finishing her workday, Nohema was tragically killed, leaving the residents of Fairfield in shock and fear. What a devastating event for their once peaceful town. Nohema was born on November 10, 1954, in Jalapa, Mexico, where she grew up in a loving family. From a young age, she was known for her openness and kindness. At the age of 20, Nohema began her career as a flight attendant for a major Mexican airline, which allowed her to indulge her passion for travel and an active lifestyle. She became one of the first women in Mexico to train as a pilot, paving the way for future female pilots in this challenging yet prestigious field. In 1985, at the age of 31, Nohema met Paul Graber, who was visiting Mexico on a business trip. They first encountered each other at a nightclub. After their meeting, Paul received Nohema's phone number and called her a few days later. Initially, he thought she was ignoring him, but she agreed to go on a date. Their relationship quickly blossomed into a romance. After a year of dating, on October 4, 1986, Nohema and Paul got married in Mexico. They then settled in Nohema's hometown, where she continued her work in the airline industry while Paul found a job in this new country. In 1991, after 5 years of marriage, the Graber family welcomed their first child, a son named Christian. A year later, they had another son, Jareth. Nohema, who was 37 and had worked for 17 years, decided to focus on her family. During the 1990s, the area where they lived became increasingly dangerous, prompting they to make the significant decision to leave Mexico and move to America, Paul's homeland. In 1992, they settled in Fairfield, where Paul found a well-paying job and supported the family while Nohema became a stay-at-home mom. Soon after, she gave birth to their daughter, Naima. Nohema quickly adapted to life in the U.S. and began attending St. Mary's Catholic Church, where she made a donation and eventually became a community leader. As time went on, their children grew up and began to move out, leaving Nohema feeling bored and lacking purpose. Once she turned 50, she decided to pursue further education and enrolled at Westland University in Mount Plant, Iowa. There, she earned a degree in English and a teaching certificate. Nohema then secured a job at a high school in Atashtat, Iowa, where she taught Spanish for several years, gaining valuable experience. In 2012, Nohema began teaching at Fairfield High School. Her students and colleagues appreciated her greatly, often speaking of her fondly. Graduates would send her postcards and letters, and she made it a point to respond, and always ending her replies with her signature message, "Be more confident." On November 2, 2021, after school, Nohema drove to the park. She was active and enjoyed walking, but that day she did not return home. Her husband, Paul, grew concerned when she didn't answer his calls. He went to the park and searched their usual spots, but he was unable to find her anywhere, and her car, a blue 1997 Honda Odyssey, was also missing. Feeling anxious, Paul promptly contacted the police to report. Right away, a search began in the park for Nohima. Her colleagues reported that she had not shown up for work, and since the previous evening, she had stopped responding to calls and messages. Meanwhile, students contacted the police with information about their classmate. They revealed that the night before, he had shared disturbing photos on social network. These photos were sent by Jeremy Goodale, a 16-year-old student at Fairfield High School. Born in 2005, Jeremy grew up in a dysfunctional family with 4 older siblings. His parents frequently argued and were often absent, leaving the older children to care for the younger ones. Eventually, the parents divorced. The mother moved in with another man, leaving her children behind to live with their father in the family home. The living conditions in the house were chaotic. It was filled with dirt and dust, flies buzzed around, and the bed linens had gone unchanged for months. They washed only once a week. The children lacked female care and love, so looked unkempt. Jeremy was described by his classmates as a quiet and modest boy who played on a baseball team. He didn't stand out much, except for his messy appearance. However, Jeremy faced more serious issues. He struggled with depression, anxiety, and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Doctors prescribed him medication to help. He studied Spanish with a teacher named Nohima, and his best friend was Willard Miller. Unlike Jeremy, Willard came from a wealthy family, but he found school challenging, particularly with foreign languages. Willard had recently transferred to Fairfield High School after attending a prestigious school with a tougher curriculum. On November 3, the body of Nohima was discovered near the railway in the north. She was lying on the ground wrapped in a tarpaulin, covered with old sleepers, various garbage, branches, and leaves. At the time of the discovery, she had died many hours ago. An initial examination revealed that Nohima died from blunt force trauma to the head. What does that mean? Her death was a homicide, and that her body had been deliberately concealed. Witnesses reported seeing Nohima's Honda Odyssey leave the park around 5:00 p.m. She had spent approximately 45 minutes there. However, the witnesses could not identify or describe the actual driver. Shortly afterward, the police found her blue Honda abandoned on a country road south of where her body was located. Another witness later came forward, stating they saw 2 young men walking along this same road around 5:30 p.m., heading back to the park. One of them was pushing an old garden wheelbarrow. Unfortunately, this witness could not describe the young men and did not remember their faces. Based on the suspicious photo that went viral, the police arrived at Jeremy's house. He seemed agitated. Although he knew that the teacher was missing, he was unaware that her body had already been discovered. He denied any involvement in her disappearance, but was not informed about what the police had found at his home. Detectives discovered a blood-stained baseball bat and several black hairs in his house. They also found clothes and a blood-stained terry towel belonging to him. On Jeremy's phone, they found a text file titled "Preparation," which detailed the items needed for a planned act, including rubber gloves, wet wipes, a backpack, a bag, a blanket, a garden wheelbarrow, and other supplies. The file also outlined a step-by-step plan of actions. After the officers finished inspecting Jeremy's house, they proceeded to Willard's home. At that time, Willard, like Jeremy, was unaware that their teacher had already been found dead. Willard remained calm during the police questioning and readily discussed how he and Jeremy had walked in the local park the previous evening. However, he became visibly nervous when the conversation shifted to Nohima. His demeanor changed as he mentioned that Nohima did not regard him highly and often underestimated him. Meanwhile, the community of Fairfield was shocked and mourned the passing of Nohima, as she was known to be kind, compassionate, and always helpful to her students, leaving everyone puzzled about why anyone would want to harm her. After searches of the houses, Jeremy Goodale and Willard Miller were arrested and taken into custody on suspicion of murdering their Spanish language teacher. During their interrogation, they were informed that the body had been discovered. Both provided similar accounts of the events. They admitted to walking in the park that afternoon when they encountered their teacher. They greeted her, but suddenly, a group of masked individuals attacked Nohema, hitting her on the head with a bat, causing her to lose consciousness and fall. Jeremy and Willard claimed they were forced to watch as the assailants continued to assault her. They alleged that they were then told to hide the body, take her car, and abandon it near a country road. Jeremy and Willard denied any wrongdoing, asserting that they were merely witnesses to the murder and had been compelled to obey the orders of the true criminals. However, evidence found in Jeremy's house suggested otherwise. The blood and hair found on the baseball bat, as well as the blood on Jeremy's clothes and towel, all belonged to Nohema. Furthermore, there were no witnesses who saw a group of masked individuals or any strangers in the park. A notebook discovered in Jeremy's house revealed that he and his friends had been stalking Nohema for several weeks. They recorded the times her classes ended, when she left school, how long she spent in her car, and where she went afterward. This detailed documentation of Nohema's schedule indicated that it was easy for them to predict her daily movements. The young men knew that Nohema walked in the park every day and were familiar with this route. They chose the right moment to attack Nohema while she was walking alone on a dark, deserted street. During questioning, Willard admitted that he disliked Nohema because he felt she always underestimated him. He acknowledged that he frequently argued with her during class, and his classmates had witnessed these confrontations. These two young men told conflicting stories. This time, Jeremy accused Willard of hitting Nohema, while Willard insisted he had not touched her, claiming that it was Jeremy who had killed her. During the investigation, the investigators was uncovered that on the day of the incident, Jeremy and Willard went to a park and concealed themselves in an out-of-the-way spot while they waited. When Nohema arrived, one of them struck her on the head with a bat, causing her to lose consciousness and collapse. The two then dragged her off the path and took turns assaulting her until she died. Afterward, they covered her body with branches and leaves before fleeing the scene in her car, which they abandoned on a country road. While walking, they made their way to Willard's house, where they took a garden wheelbarrow, a shovel, and a tarpaulin. They returned to the crime scene, wrapped the victim in the tarpaulin, placed her in the wheelbarrow, and transported her to the railroad tracks. There, they concealed the body by placing old railway sleepers, garbage, branches, and fallen leaves on top. Once the body was hidden, Jeremy and Willard returned home and attempted to clean up any evidence of their crime, believing they would never be discovered. Detectives discovered unusual search queries on Willard's phone, including, "Do students receive credit for a lesson if a teacher is seriously injured or dies during a course?" And, "What happens to students' work if a teacher dies mid-course?" Before the incident, Willard had planned a trip to Spain, but after receiving a low grade on a test, that trip became uncertain. Prosecutors viewed Willard as the main instigator of the crime, driven by a desire for revenge against the teacher, while his friend Jeremy appeared to be following Willard's lead. Additionally, Jeremy struggled with depression and anxiety, which made him emotionally vulnerable and easier to manipulate. This made him a more suitable accomplice for Willard's malicious scheme. During his trial in December 2021, Jeremy pleaded guilty to first-degree murder and agreed to testify against Willard. In his testimony, Jeremy claimed that Willard was the first to attack their teacher, Nohema Graber, on the afternoon of November 2, 2021, when they both invited her out. He stated that Willard pushed her, causing her to fall and sustain serious injuries. However, Jeremy also confessed that after Nohema lost consciousness, he used a baseball bat to strike her multiple times, resulting in her death. Jeremy claimed that he and Willard beat her together to ensure that Nohema would not survive. Throughout the trial, Jeremy continually cried and asked for forgiveness from the family of the deceased. He expressed deep remorse for what had happened. Willard also admitted his guilt, but maintained that Jeremy had delivered the first blow. In court, Willard was more composed. Like Jeremy, he sought forgiveness from the Graeber family. He said, "I am truly sorry for the pain I caused you. I regret that your family is suffering because of me. I sincerely apologize from the bottom of my heart. I fully recognize the seriousness of my actions. I know I was wrong." Willard Miller was the first to be sentenced in June 2023, receiving a life sentence with the possibility of parole after 35 years. Sadly, another tragic event occurred following this story. Nohema's husband, Paul Graeber, passed away in June 2023 from terminal cancer. Paul, 68, was buried the day before Willard's verdict was announced, and he never saw his wife's killers face justice. Paul's family and friends reported that he was deeply affected by his wife's death. They believed that if Nohema had been alive, she would have noticed Paul's illness early and sought timely treatment, which might have saved his life. In November 2023, Jeremy Goodale was found guilty in connection with the case of Nohema and sentenced to life in prison, with the possibility of parole after 25 years. During the trial, Jeremy was so distraught that he experienced a nosebleed and cried. He expressed regret, saying, "I wish I could turn back time to prevent this loss and the pain I caused the family. It was the worst decision of my life, and I take full responsibility for what I did." Nohema Graeber had 3 adult children, brothers, sisters, nephews, and nieces, who certainly miss their beloved and caring mother. They fondly remember their mother and father. It is known that the sons and daughter forgave the murderers and try not to remember them. After their mother's death, one of the sons found their mother's personal diary. In it, she wrote short notes about her life, expressing that she loved teaching and adored her students very much. Nohema wrote that she would always smile and give her students support, stating that even if she could not teach them anything new, just looking at her would help the students learn to love life. Welcome back, mystery lovers. Today's case is going to keep you on the edge of your seat. The case of Karen Newell. TE Sunday evening, February 20th, 1994, on a desolate rural road in Orange County, Florida, between Cocoa Beach and Orlando. A car was parked on the side of the road, and a woman was frantically waving her arms at passing vehicles. When a driver finally stopped, she pleaded for help. In the car's headlights, a man could be seen bleeding in the passenger seat. A woman named Karen Newell was trying to save her husband, John Newell, who had been shot multiple times but was still alive. Karen asked the driver for a phone and urgently called 911, screaming that her husband was dying. Within minutes, a deputy sheriff arrived, followed by police and paramedics, but it was too late for John. He needed a forensic expert, not medical assistance. He died before help could arrive, and all the doctors could do was confirm his death from multiple gunshot wounds. They immediately began communicating with Karen about the tragic situation. Karen recounted that they were attacked while returning home to Orlando after a day at the beach. On the way back, their car started having problems that she couldn't understand. Her husband asked her to pull over to the side of the road to check the issue. As Karen got out and opened the hood, a small sedan parked right next to them. Inside were 3 men who looked threatening. One detail she remembered was a sticker on the rear window that said "Bad Boy." The men got out of their car without noticing Karen, who was focused on the engine. She watched as one of them approached her husband's window and demanded his wallet. Her husband refused and tried to defend himself. During the struggle, one of the attackers pulled out a gun and shot him multiple times. Afterward, the men jumped back into their car and drove away. Fortunately, Karen was unharmed. She quickly ran to John, who was bleeding. She felt helpless and couldn't do anything to save him. Karen Newell was originally from Florida and had faced a difficult life filled with cruelty since childhood. Despite these challenges, she maintained a cheerful and energetic spirit, enjoying parties and socializing with her many friends throughout high school. As she blossomed into a beautiful young woman, heads turned wherever she went, but this did not lead to a happy family life. After graduating, she experienced several unsuccessful relationships and, by her 20th birthday, had been married twice, with both marriages ending in divorce. Nevertheless, she hopeful. That spring, she focused on advancing her career. Previously, she had held various accounting jobs and worked as a nurse in a private clinic. This charming brunette even entered beauty contests, hoping to launch a modeling career, but luck was not on her side in those pursuits. One evening, she walked into a bar in one of Orlando's suburbs. There, she found a friendly stranger sitting alone with a drink. He was John, a respected local mechanic who owned a car repair shop. Just before their meeting, John had gone through a difficult breakup with his first wife, a Navy nurse who had just returned home from a long business trip. She told him she was seeing someone else, which was why he went to the bar that night. When Karen saw him, she felt an immediate attraction. Confident and outgoing, she approached him, sat down next to him, and began chatting. She discovered that he was the owner of a popular auto repair shop, young, successful, and attractive. Their brief encounter quickly developed into a passionate night. John then fell in love with Karen, and she felt the same. Their relationship flourished rapidly, and just 2 months after their intense night together, they got married on May 22, 1993. The newlyweds appeared genuinely happy, surrounded by a wave of love and joy. Shortly after their wedding, Karen's modeling prospects improved, thanks to her husband's connections and her regular participation in beauty contests. She landed a well-paying television job, leading to a busy schedule that often kept her away for several days. Despite John's worries about losing Karen like he lost his first wife, she reassured him that she would never betray him. She reminded him that their sacrifices would eventually pay off, and together they dreamed of retiring in 5 years, free from work and worry. However, just a few months after their wedding, Karen discovered she was pregnant. The couple was thrilled. John's desire for a large family seemed within reach, and they continued to support each other through this exciting new chapter. A few days after Valentine's Day, they planned a weekend getaway to the beach in Florida to relax after a busy week. On February 20th, John and Karen packed their bags and drove to Cocoa Beach, located on the east side of Orlando. Known for its stunning views and excellent surfing, they spent the entire day enjoying the beach, having a barbecue, swimming, and before leaving, stopped by a surf shop to buy some gear. After that, they packed their belongings and headed home. Karen was driving because her husband had consumed some alcohol earlier and wanted to avoid losing his license. John sat in the front passenger seat. They passed through a toll booth and entered the state highway. At this time, her husband was adjusting the radio, which wasn't functioning properly. Suddenly, the car skidded slightly. Karen mentioned to her husband that the car felt odd, and she noticed a strong vibration in the steering wheel. They decided to pull over and investigate, but then the attack occurred. John was shot multiple times while sitting in the passenger seat of the car. The police conducted a detailed search for the attackers. Using Karen's testimony, they were able to create a detailed description of the car, noting one key detail, a sticker on the rear window. Karen later reported feeling unwell. She was pregnant, so emergency services rushed her to the hospital to ensure her and her baby's safety. 2.40 caliber shell casings were found near the car, indicating that the men were dangerous criminals. They were armed with at least one handgun. Surprisingly, they fled so quickly that they forgot to take the victim's wallet. Police alerted neighboring counties, notified all available patrols, and warned drivers of passing cars. Checkpoints were set up, with officers carefully monitoring vehicles. Initially, attention was focused on cars with bad boy stickers. However, no drivers reported seeing such a car, and it did not pass through the checkpoints. In the ambulance, Karen answered all the necessary questions about the incident. However, the health of the Karen and child was the main priority at that time. After being examined at the hospital, doctors confirmed that the Karen was in stable condition. She was able to speak with police officers later that same day. Karen provided a detailed account of the events. She explained that they were not alone on the beach. A friend from work, Peter, joined them shortly after they arrived at Cocoa Beach. The three of them spent most of the day together, and at the end of the day, they drove back to Orlando in two separate cars. Peter drove his own car while Karen followed him closely behind. After passing the toll booth, Peter drove ahead and quickly vanished from view. Soon after, Karen's car began to vibrate. Her husband insisted they stop immediately to check the car's condition. Karen got out of the driver's seat and opened the hood. Suddenly, she heard the screech of brakes as a stranger's car pulled up near theirs. Just seconds later, gunfire erupted. In that moment, Karen crouched down to hide under the open hood. She overheard the attackers, dressed in black and white, demanding her husband's wallet. Then, several loud shots rang out, and the criminals fled the scene. She noticed that the robbers didn't take the wallet, but she couldn't see their faces. The police arrived quickly and began investigating the scene, exploring various possibilities. Some unusual aspects caught their attention, raising doubts about Karen's statement. First, no one reported seeing a car marked Bad Boy. Second, it seemed odd that the robbers, who were after a wallet for money, would leave abruptly and forget their loot after committing murder. Third, they overlooked the woman and didn't check why the car's hood was open. Finally, it was odd that John, a mechanic, didn't check under the hood himself, while the one checking the car was Karen, who didn't know much about cars. The police did not charge Karen with fraud. Instead, they chose to gather more details about the case. The police quickly found some interesting information, specifically a report from 3 months earlier in Orlando. It turned out that an assault had occurred at Karen's home. According to the couple's previous statements, at around 9 p.m., Karen heard a noise in their backyard. She told her husband about it and asked him to check it out. When John went outside, he encountered 2 masked men. The neighbor quickly left the house when he heard the noise, and the porch light suddenly turned on, scaring the attackers, so they ran away. John returned home and told his wife what had happened, and she called the rescue service. John was not seriously injured, but he had a lot of bruises. John had no valuable information that could help catch the criminals, since he could not see their faces. After a brief and unsuccessful search, John's family's case was declared unsolved. John believed that he had interrupted the robbers, leading to their attack on his home. However, things now seemed more serious. He may have inadvertently made enemies, and they had come back to destroy him. This also explained why they did not take his wallet. Their goal was never to steal, but to kill him. The police started investigating all the people that John might have had conflicts with recently. John ran a successful business, raising the question of whether competitors could resort to extreme actions. Most of John's friends and acquaintances were unaware of any conflicts. John was known to be a kind and non-confrontational person, never speaking about any unpleasant situations that might cause resentment towards him. Everyone agreed that he was always willing to help others. As the investigation progressed, it became clear that John's kind nature may have contributed to the tragedy. Police discovered that shortly before the attack, a stranger had appeared in John's backyard. He was identified as Peter, a friend of Karen's who had recently gone on vacation with their family John. Peter's apartment had been broken into, forcing him to seek temporary housing. Karen convinced John to allow Peter to stay in her home for a while, to support him during this difficult time. Peter is an attractive young man with blonde hair and blue eyes. After new discoveries in the investigation, there is growing suspicion that Karen has feelings for Peter, and that Peter is likely the father of the child. It is possible that the couple planned to eliminate John in order to benefit financially from their relationship. Peter, who had a close relationship with Karen, became a suspect in the murder investigation. He was brought to the police station for questioning. During the interview, Peter's account matched what Karen had said. He confirmed that he had gone to Cocoa Beach with Karen's family and spent time there with them, drinking beer and smoking marijuana. That evening, he drove away after passing through a checkpoint, not waiting for Karen's family because he was on his way home to Port St. Lucie. Overall, his story was consistent with Karen's account. He provided detailed information about his background to counter any claims about an affair with Karen. At that moment, it became clear that Karen had lied. She had claimed that Peter was an assistant producer at a TV channel where she worked, but that was false. In reality, Peter did not have a steady job. He had dropped out of school and occasionally did part-time work like mowing lawns. This allowed him to make enough money to get by, but he was not involved in any television work. Police learned from Peter's friends that Karen had been having an affair with Peter, which began a few months before he moved into John's house. During this time, Peter often bragged about his relationship with a married woman and often shared the story of how they met. It was later revealed that Karen had used business trips as an excuse to spend time with Peter. At the time, Karen was 29 and Peter was 18. While Karen kept the relationship a secret, she often visited him in the city, where they enjoyed days together and spent John's money. They met by chance while driving on the highway. The Karen caught his attention with her handcuff keychain hanging from her rearview mirror. When they stopped at a traffic light, he happily stuck his hands out the window as if they were handcuffed. To his surprise, she smiled back and they began flirting. After their first meeting, they spent the night together on the beach. His friends noticed that Peter was very fond of Karen. He even talked seriously about marrying her and was convinced that she might be pregnant with his child. The couple had a clear motive for killing John. However, at this stage of the investigation, there was no concrete evidence to confirm their involvement. The first step was to locate the murder weapon. A .22 caliber pistol was found at the crime scene. Police are looking for witnesses who may know about Peter and Karen's weapons. They interviewed one of the Karen's ex-husbands, who revealed that Peter was not Karen's only sexual partner. She often meets with her ex in various hotels. In November 1993, she approached him with an unusual request to borrow a .22 caliber pistol for self-defense, claiming she felt threatened after two strangers attacked John. He believed her and provided her with the weapon, which raised suspicions. It is necessary to locate the pistol and conduct ballistics testing to determine whether John was shot with this gun. When the police asked Karen's ex-husband about the weapon, he reported that she had not yet returned it. This raised the police's suspicions about Karen's involvement in her husband's death. As they investigated her background, they discovered that she was on probation at the time. In the 1980s, Karen had been convicted of credit card forgery and large-scale theft. Because of her probation status, she was not allowed to possess the weapon given to her by her ex-husband. Consequently, just 8 days after John's death, Karen was arrested for violating her probation, which meant she would remain in custody until the investigation was finished. Police quickly received crucial evidence just 2 days after the arrest. They interviewed Louis Aragon, Karen's half-brother. Louis had a criminal history. In the summer of 1993, Karen approached him with a proposition. Her husband had a $500,000 life insurance policy, and Karen wanted him to help eliminate John. In exchange, she promised him a large payout. However, despite the tempting offer, Louis refused to participate in the murder. In November, Peter and Karen planned to brutally beat John in their yard over a money dispute. Fortunately, a neighbor intervened in time and scared the attackers away, which angered Karen, who had begun to plan how to get rid of her troublesome husband. Key to the investigation was the testimony of her half-brother, Louis. He revealed that Karen had approached him just days after the first attack and tried to convince him to participate in a second murder, but he had refused. Peter, however, was willing to do anything for Karen. As Thanksgiving approached in 1993, Karen convinced her husband to allow Peter to live with them. The police needed to verify the truthfulness of their new witness. They started by reviewing the couple's insurance policies. They discovered that Karen had taken out a life insurance policy on her husband for $250,000, which was stored in his safe. Over time, she acquired several additional policies, totaling around $500,000, a significant sum at that time. It appeared that her greed led her to eliminate her husband in order to collect the insurance payouts. Karen was determined to receive the money. In the days following John's death, she contacted various insurance companies, and some had already issued her compensation by the time of the investigation. However, the largest payments were on hold, prompting Karen to visit multiple insurance companies to demand her money. Meanwhile, on March 28, 1994, Peter was arrested as well. Both were charged with John Newell's murder. The prosecutor's office alleges that from the beginning, Karen began her relationship with John with the intention of receiving his insurance money. After getting married, she quickly took out a $250,000 life insurance policy and continued to purchase smaller policies. However, she did not directly participate in any crimes. Instead, she manipulated Peter and convinced him that they would marry and have a child together, portraying her husband, John, as an obstacle to their future. After the murder, a pregnancy test was conducted and it was found that she was not pregnant. She had an IUD, preventing any possibility of pregnancy at the time. Karen was fully aware of this. It was clear that her claim of being pregnant was simply a manipulation tactic to control the men around her. Given her deceitful nature, the prosecutor's office was aiming for the death penalty. And Peter was also facing the death penalty. So it was easy to get a confession by offering a deal. The plea agreement included cross-examination, during which Peter quickly admitted to having an affair with Karen. He claimed that they had been intimate at every meeting. She had won his heart. Peter revealed that it was Karen who had suggested attacking John in his apartment. When that plan failed, Karen began planning a more elaborate crime. As soon as Peter got out of the car, he pointed a gun at John's head and fired 3 more bullets into John's chest. Peter then dumped the gun in a lake several miles from the crime scene. Divers were able to recover the gun, and ballistics tests confirmed that it was the same gun that had shot John Newell. Additionally, the gun's serial number matched the serial number registered to Karen's ex-husband. In exchange for this crucial information, Peter was offered a plea deal for second-degree murder instead of first-degree murder. During the preliminary hearing, it was clear that Karen's lawyers were determined to fight hard. They tried to blame Peter, arguing that he was the mastermind behind the crime, motivated by jealousy over. Karen was portrayed as an innocent victim caught in the love triangle. If Karen was not involved in planning the murder, then how did Peter get the gun that her ex-husband owned? She never gave a satisfactory explanation for this. In addition, Peter and Karen's ex-husband did not know each other. The ex-husband even confirmed that Karen asked him for a gun. On September 5, 1994, Peter was sentenced to a long prison term with the possibility of parole, and he was released in early January 2010. And Karen Newell was sentenced to life in prison. She complained that it was unfair that Peter, who pulled the trigger, received a lighter sentence than she. Welcome back, mystery lovers. Today's case is going to keep you on the edge of your seat. The case of Kelly Brennan. On the evening of February 15, 2010, Kelly Brennan, 46, failed to show up for her scheduled gym session, which was unusual because she never missed a workout. Her trainer tried calling her, but no one answered. Soon, the disturbing truth about her situation began to emerge. Kelly's neighbor and friend, Stephanie, had seen her that morning at around 6 a.m. as Kelly was leaving for work. After their brief encounter, Stephanie went to her job and did not see or speak to Kelly again until later in the day. Despite Stephanie's efforts to reach her, she received no response. By 11 p.m., Stephanie was concerned enough to call 911 to report Kelly missing. When the police arrived at Kelly's house, Stephanie told them that Kelly had taken her sports uniform for the training session. Kelly was well known for being responsible and punctual, making her disappearance all the more alarming. Police began to gather more information about Kelly Brennan. Born in 1963 in New Jersey, she had 4 older sisters and was known for her kind personality. After graduating from high school, Kelly planned to attend medical school to study nursing. To help pay for her college tuition, she worked as a waitress. She was recognized for her independence and strong work ethic. After graduating, she moved to a small, peaceful town called Andy Allen Tick in Florida, which has a population of about 3,000 and is located on the coast. There, she became a nurse at a local hospital and also worked part-time at a restaurant. It was at this restaurant that she met her future husband, Gina, the restaurant manager. They eventually married, bringing happiness into Kelly's life. Kelly led an active lifestyle and loved sports. In addition to attending gym classes, she enjoyed biking with friends. One of her biking partners was Sheila Trott, who had moved from Canada to this beautiful resort town. Sheila worked as a diving instructor and also had a part-time job at the restaurant where Kelly was employed. Sheila met and fell in love with Daniel Trott, a charming pilot, and they married in 1989. They had 2 sons, and Sheila became a dedicated homemaker. The family was happy, and when the children grew older, Sheila pursued a career as a realtor. Meanwhile, Daniel became mayor of Andy Allen Tick in 2002, serving until 2006. Over the years, Sheila and Kelly maintained a friendship, often cycling together and enjoying time with her husband. In 2009, Sheila discovered that her husband was cheating on her, which left her devastated. Despite her grief, Sheila, with resilience, tried to save their marriage. But that did not solve their problems. In March 2009, after a difficult time, her husband Daniel filed for divorce. At the same time, Kelly was also having marital problems. She wanted a divorce, although her husband wanted to stay together. Unable to bear her unhappy situation, Kelly left her husband and moved in with her friend, Stephanie. About 6 months later, on February 15, 2010, Kelly disappeared. Police found out that Kelly had multiple sclerosis, which led them to consider the possibility that she might have been involved in a car accident and felt too weak to drive properly. They searched for her car along her route to the gym and checked local hospitals, but they found nothing. Her car was listed as wanted. The police discovered that Kelly was supposed to work a shift at the hospital and had left around 6 o'clock in the evening. They also visited the gym to talk to her trainer, who confirmed that Kelly hadn't shown up for her session by 9 o'clock. The next morning, Sheila's mother called the police to report that her daughter had suffered a nervous breakdown and had a disturbing dream about Kelly. This was strange because Sheila was unaware of Kelly's disappearance at the time. Female police officers arrived to respond to the call. Sheila's sons, who lived with her, noticed that she had been acting strangely since the night before. Concerned for her health, they took her to the hospital. But the doctors found nothing wrong and she was sent home. Upon her return, Sheila had a nightmare that caused her to scream in her sleep. Worried about Sheila, her children called their grandmother. Sheila's mother arrived that night to support Sheila and stay by her side. While in bed, Sheila kept telling her mother that she had a terrible dream about Kelly. As a result, Sheila's mother called 911 again. When the police arrived, they found Sheila in distress. When they asked her about the dream, Sheila said she had seen someone she loved and felt she had hurt someone else. She repeatedly pictured Kelly's face but couldn't explain more. She insisted that Kelly was in danger and even pointed out a specific location where she thought Kelly might be. The police followed up on this information and went to search the area Sheila indicated. The situation was complicated by the thick vegetation, which made it difficult to see clearly in the area. A helicopter was called in to search from the air. They spotted legs sticking out of the bushes. When police arrived, they found the body of a woman wearing tracksuit bottoms and who closely resembled Kelly. The body was covered in blood and showed clear signs of a struggle, although the murder may have occurred elsewhere. It seemed the crime was particularly brutal. Sheila faced skepticism about her alleged supernatural abilities. Police believed she may have testified about the incident or held valuable information regarding the case. Police spoke with Sheila and her husband, Daniel, who was in the process of divorcing her. Daniel admitted to having an affair with Kelly, which started after he moved out of Sheila's home. That evening, Daniel was anxious because Kelly did not show up at the fitness club as planned. He claimed that Sheila had found out about their affair, which led to a confrontation involving Kelly. Daniel also mentioned that Kelly's ex-husband, Gina, was aware of the affair. Gina met Daniel at Kelly's new home while she was staying with Daniel. Kelly asked Gina to leave, after which she argued with Gina, which resulted in a heated argument and Gina hitting her. Kelly called 911, but when the police arrived, she chose not to file a complaint and instead left. After this incident, Gina threatened Daniel, leading him to believe that Kelly's ex-husband might have killed her out of jealousy. The police realized that the killer might be someone involved in a complicated love triangle and decided to investigate everyone involved in the affair. Daniel had an alibi. He worked all day and then went to the gym. This left him no time to be at the site where the body was discovered, about an hour's drive from the city. The prime suspect remained Kelly's jealous husband, who had a history of violence against her. The autopsy results revealed that Kelly died from trauma caused by a blunt object striking her head, resulting in a fractured skull. There were no skin particles under her fingernails that matched the Gina's DNA, suggesting she did not fight back. This indicated that she was likely struck from behind, lost consciousness, and the attacker continued to strike her until she was no longer alive. The suspected murder weapon was a hammer. Police questioned Gina, who revealed that he had found out about his wife's affair through text messages from Sheila. He admitted to attacking Daniel but denied killing Kelly, claiming he had an alibi. The police then turned their attention to Sheila. The person had been showing signs of instability since the night before. They suspected her, especially since she was the one who revealed where Kelly's body was found. When approached by the police for questioning, Sheila refused to cooperate. The police then returned to Kelly's house, where a thorough investigation uncovered signs of a struggle. They discovered Kelly's car nearby with blood on the floor mats. Neighbors reported seeing a suspicious blonde woman arriving in a white car close to the house that evening, suggesting that Kelly was attacked as she came home. Police obtained a search warrant for Sheila's home and found her white car there. Inside the car, they discovered a drop of blood, which was sent to a lab for analysis. The test results showed that it was Kelly's blood. On February 17, 2010, Sheila was arrested. Although she knew about the situation, she chose to remain silent and not testify. Sheila tried to face first-degree murder charges. Meanwhile, police began to gather evidence against her. 4 years later, just before a scheduled court hearing, Sheila's sons, then 21 and 23, went to the police. They explained that their mother had undergone a major change after learning about her husband's affair with Kelly. Sheila became angry and directed her anger at Kelly. Her sons recalled that on February 15, 2010, Sheila had spent the day painting the walls of their home. They said she had gone to Walmart that evening and returned around 11 p.m. without purchasing anything, but wearing different clothes. Sheila eventually admitted to her sons that she had killed Kelly. But they did not believe her. They asked where Kelly's body was, and Sheila said she could show them. That night, they all got into the car and drove to the location where the body was found. The teens were frightened by the sight of the legs and ran away, confused by what they had seen. Not knowing what to do, they called their grandmother for help, after which Sheila's mother contacted the police, and they located Kelly's body based on Sheila's instructions. Shortly after, Sheila wrote a letter from prison stating that her memory had returned. She claimed that she witnessed Kelly's murder in reality, not in a dream. She described seeing Kelly being attacked by an unknown man while she was parked and waiting for her friend. No one believed Sheila's story. People questioned why she didn't call the police right after witnessing the murder. During the trial, her sons testified against her. Tensions rose in court as Sheila insisted she loved Kelly and would never hurt her, but the evidence of her actions was clear. Although Sheila stuck to her account, she couldn't convincingly explain her whereabouts in the hours leading up to the murder. Her story changed over time but never gained credibility. In the end, Sheila was convicted of premeditated murder and sentenced to life in prison without parole. Sheila's mother feels guilty for having called the police, believing she played a part in her daughter's severe sentence. Hi everyone, thanks for returning. Let's unravel another perplexing mystery. The case of Brittany Gregory. Brittany Gregory was born on April 1, 1988 in Brigg, New Jersey, a small town. She is the youngest of 5 children, and her parents are divorced. She and her siblings live with their father. Brittany has a strong relationship with everyone, especially her sister Brianna, who is 4 years older than her. They have a special bond, often helping each other, exchanging clothes, and playing together. Brittany did very well in school. She was recognized as the top student in her class, and her teachers saw great potential in her, believing that she could become a scientist in the future. Despite her achievements, Brittany remained humble, cheerful, and kind. She often helped others and had many friends. Brittany harbored a unique desire to become a forensic scientist, motivated by her fascination with analyzing evidence at crime scenes. By the summer of 2004, 16-year-old Brittany and her 20-year-old older sister, Brianna, lived with their father, Joe Dana, and his new partner, Lori Peterson, in a small house near their school. Their home was the last house on the street, adjacent to a wooded area. At that time, Brittany was dating an 18-year-old named John Fitzgerald. They had been in a relationship for nearly 2 years, and John was well-liked by Brittany's family. On Sunday, July 11, 2004, Brianna and her mother traveled to Toms River to visit Brittany's brother, who needed help caring for his daughter. While they were gone, Brittany called her mother on her cell phone. Voice was very sad, as if something was wrong. Her mother explained that they were too far from home to take Brittany to John's house right away, but that Brianna could come and help her in an hour. Brittany disagreed with this plan. Brianna was free about 45 minutes later and tried calling Brittany, but younger sister did not answer. Thinking that Brittany might be asleep or had found another way to get a ride, Brianna decided to go to bed. The next morning, Brianna came home to find that Brittany was missing. Although Brittany's belongings, including her phone, were still in her room, Brianna wondered if she had stayed overnight at John's place. However, it didn't make sense for her to leave without telling anyone, especially without her phone. Worried, Brianna began calling all of Brittany's friends to see if they had seen her, but no one had any information. Brianna then called John, who said that he last spoke to Brittany on Sunday morning and that she had not visited him since. Realizing that something was wrong, Brianna rushed to the police station to report Brittany missing. The police initially dismissed Brianna's concerns about younger sister, Brittany. They thought Brittany might have run away or was just hanging out with friends. Brianna told the police that she had already reached out to all of Brittany's friends and her boyfriend, but no one had seen her. She stressed that her sister wouldn't have run away because she was a dedicated student who preferred spending time in the library. After some convincing from Brianna, the police began to take the situation more seriously, and police started their investigation. Their first visit was to the father's house, where Brittany had last been seen, to look for clues. They found Brittany's purse, phone, and wallet still in her room, and everything seemed normal, no signs of struggle. Police also interviewed all family members living in the home and confirmed that each had an alibi. Posters featuring pictures of the Brittany were placed throughout the city as police began searching the area around her house and interviewing neighbors for information. They found that her house was at the end of the street, adjacent to a wooded area. Although none of the neighbors reported anything unusual that evening, one neighbor remembered seeing a girl resembling Brittany walking down the street late Friday night, 2 days before she went missing. Brianna told the police that Brittany and John had been having a difficult relationship, often arguing, and that they had another fight on the day she disappeared. Police brought John in for questioning, where he confidently claimed that the last time he spoke to Brittany was that morning before she went missing. John was at the beach with friends, and he was not enjoying himself. He mentioned that he had broken up with Brittany a few days earlier, but she was having trouble accepting it, even though she knew he was now dating someone else. John did not plan to see Brittany that evening and was unaware that she was coming to meet him. However, he shared an important detail: Brittany often took a path through the forest behind her father's house to visit him. When asked why he broke up with Brittany, John explained that she had kissed another guy at a party, which led him to end their relationship and start dating someone new. The last time he saw Brittany was on July 10th, the day before she disappeared. On that day, she gave him a letter in which she expressed a desire to reconcile. The police requested to see this letter, and John provided it to them. In the letter, Brittany apologized for her actions, acknowledged that she had hurt John, and asked if they could remain friends. John appeared genuinely worried and anxious about Brittany's disappearance. The police had no evidence against him and released him after he passed a background check and a polygraph test. Thereby, he was eliminated from the suspect list. Brittany's disappearance became increasingly puzzling. Contrary to her family's beliefs, she was not as shy as they thought. She attended parties, flirted with various guys, and would sometimes travel through the forest in the evenings to meet a guy who lived about 1.5 kilometers away. This raised concerns about what could have happened to her in the forest. Search efforts began there, focusing on a bike path that started near her house and led to the John's place. Despite searching for 3 days, no signs of her were found. The investigation hit a wall until a woman came forward. She had been in the park with her boyfriend that evening and remembered one vehicle avalanche pickup with distinctive wheels that passed by. She noted the license plate, and police traced the vehicle to a 23-year-old man named Anthony Geiger. When they investigated Anthony, they discovered that he was the ex-boyfriend of Brittany's older sister Bobby. They had ended their relationship a month earlier because he was jealous and made suspiciously friendly gestures toward Brittany. Brittany's friends noticed that at parties, Anthony often looked at her in a strange way and attempted to flirt with her. The last time they all gathered was for dinner, where Anthony flirted with Brittany again. This behavior raised suspicions, who thought he might have tracked down and kidnapped her. They brought him in for questioning. Anthony denied being near the woods on the evening of July 11th, but he admitted that he had a friendship with Brittany and had seen her frequently at parties and other gatherings. However, he denied his friend's claims that he had flirted with her, saying that Brittany was too nice for him and that he only saw her as a friend. He insisted that he had an alibi, saying that he had spent that evening at home with a new girlfriend. The girlfriend was contacted by police and she confirmed Anthony's alibi. With no substantial evidence against him, the police released Anthony. Police reviewed Brittany's letter to John and discovered disturbing notes in her breakup text messages. They began to worry that she might harm herself because of her breakup with her boyfriend. Brittany's parents, upon hearing this theory, firmly rejected the idea that their intelligent, ambitious daughter would take her end one's own life. They believed that she loved life too much and had made important plans for her future that a breakup would not derail. The investigation hit another dead end, prompting police to reach out to the public through the media in the hope of finding potential witnesses. Police from surrounding areas joined the effort and began searching the house where Brittany went missing. Brittany's parents decided it was time to take action to find their daughter. They began by visiting nearby homes and asking locals for information, but their efforts yielded no results. During a thorough search, the police discovered something interesting in the house, a letter hidden in a magazine. In the letter, Brittany expressed her desire to enter a competition. She revealed that she came from a troubled family. Her mother was a drug addict who abandoned her when she was 9 years old. She now lived with her father and his partner, and their relationship was strained. In addition, her brother was in prison, and she visited him every weekend. She mentioned that she wasn't perfect, but she had a kind heart and wanted to be different from her parents. She was determined to create a better life for herself and dreamed of becoming a criminologist to help solve crimes. After the police read her letter, they identified new suspects, the Brittany family, who had not been considered before. The police started investigating all the members of the Brittany family, discovering that in the house where there was a massage parlor for men. The massage parlor is run by Lauren Peterson, Brittany's father's second wife. The house received daily visits from various men for private meetings, and the woman regularly saw clients. It appeared that the entire neighborhood was aware of this, and Lauren openly embraced her profession, handing out business cards widely. Neighbors reported witnessing illegal substances at her residence, raising suspicions that Lauren might also be involved in drug distribution. Police realized the teenager's disappearance was not coincidental. Something serious had occurred, indicating she was in danger. It was possible that one of Lauren's clients could have abducted Brittany from the house. The police began checking Lauren's clients and discovered many unusual people among them. Soon, the news reported that the police had arrested a suspect in Brittany's murder. The mother of the Brittany recognized him as 38-year-old Jack Fuller, who had been a family friend for 20 years. He attended all their family vacations and kept in close contact with them. His daughter was engaged to Brittany's brother, who was in prison. Brittany's mother was shocked when she heard the news. They couldn't believe that Jack could be involved. He was friendly and his teenage children were friends with Brittany. Brittany had saved Jack's life a few months before she went missing. When she went to visit his daughter, she found Jack not breathing. Brittany called 911 and the responders were able to revive him after he overdosed. How could he hurt the person who saved him? The parents knew that Jack was involved in drug use and distribution. Jack had 48 previous convictions for drug possession and trafficking. His most recent sentence was 5.5 years in prison, and he had been on parole during the time Brittany went missing. They speculated that he may have stolen money to buy drugs, but questioned why he would target their daughter. They thought he may have taken her ring or necklace. Police then tracked him down. They received information about Jack from a caller who said that Jack had complained of back pain because he had buried the body of the girl he had killed in sandy soil. Jack reportedly told the caller at the burial site would not be discovered and asked for advice on how deep to bury the body to prevent animals from finding it. The police invited the informant to the station to meet with Jack and record a conversation about the murder. The informant agreed and met Jack, successfully recording him saying he buried the body deep in the wilderness, making it unlikely to be found. Jack confessed to killing Brittany because she recognized him but did not provide further details. He also mentioned that he needed to eliminate someone else who knew too much, referring to his childhood friend Tommy, who was waiting in a car. However, at the end of their conversation, Jack claimed he was joking before getting into the car and leaving with Tommy. The police arrived at Tommy's house and took him to the station for questioning. Although Tommy insisted he didn't know anything, they showed him a recording of Jack expressing his desire to kill his friend. This made Tommy realize he was in danger and that it was wiser to report Jack. He then revealed everything he knew. On the night Brittany went missing, Tommy and Jack were driving around the neighborhood while smoking marijuana. They were near Brittany's house, and Jack decided to visit her father. He approached the house and found the door unlocked. Upon entering, he realized that Brittany's father was not home. 5 minutes later, Jack returned to the car with Brittany. When Tommy asked what happened, Brittany looked down and did not answer. Jack told Tommy that Jack would drive him home. After dropping his friend off, Jack left with Brittany. The next day, Tommy met Jack but did not mention the events of the previous day. They stopped at a car wash, where Jack meticulously washed his car, inside and out, even though he had never done this before. The car wash attendant jokingly asked him why he washed his car so thoroughly, which angered Jack, causing him to tell them to mind their own business or they might regret it. The attendant quickly backed off. Tommy learns of Brittany's disappearance, confronts Jack, and asks, "What did you do with that girl?" Jack is angry and insists that he knows nothing, claiming that he just took her home and left. Tommy suspects that Jack took Brittany into the woods that night with the intention of causing harm, especially since Jack had planned to use Lori's services that night, but Lori was not home. The police identify Jack as the prime suspect. When they come to arrest him, he tries to burn his car. The police suspect that evidence may be found in the car and conduct a thorough search. Brittany's blood was found in Jack's car. Police later went to the car wash and found that Jack had used a vacuum cleaner to clean the inside of the car. Police collected the vacuum cleaner bag for testing and found a large amount of sand and blood. Testing confirmed that the blood was Brittany's. Despite this evidence, Jack did not admit to kidnapping or killing Brittany and refused to discuss the matter. Police interviewed Jack's friends and acquaintances, most of whom believed he was capable of murder. Many described him as someone who would do anything to get what he wanted. Jack never held a job but always had money. He was involved in drug trafficking and forced drug addicts to provide sexual services in exchange for drugs. After Brittany went missing, a patrol officer stopped Jack when he saw Jack's car parked in a remote area near the woods outside the city. The officer asked Jack why he was there, and he said he was looking for his lost dog. The search for Brittany's body focused on the location, involving police, helicopters, and volunteers, but they found nothing. Police believe Brittany asked Jack to drive her to her boyfriend's house, but unfortunately, he took advantage of the situation and attacked and killed Brittany. A woman later contacted the police, saying she had information about where Brittany's body could be found. The woman had been held captive by Jack for several months while she struggled with drug addiction and was forced to comply with his demands. During this time, she got to know him well and learned all his secrets, including his routines and the places he frequented. He often took her along to these locations. One day, he pointed out a spot and mentioned it would be a good place to bury a body since no one would discover it there. Initially, the police were skeptical of her claims and asked her for more details. She was able to specify the location and noted that the soil there was sandy. Police recalled, an informant had previously mentioned Jack's complaints about the challenges of burying a body in sandy soil. The woman's information was credible, prompting them to investigate the area she identified. The search area was large, and several days passed without any results. Then, specialists compared sand collected from a vacuum cleaner with the local soil and found an exact match, prompting them to continue the search. On July 27, 2004, the dogs led them to an area with much less vegetation, where they suspected a body might be buried. They used a long stick to probe the ground, and when they pulled it out, it carried the smell of decomposing flesh. The body in the pit was that of a young girl. She was wearing a necklace with the name Brittany on it. The medical examiner confirmed that the body belonged to Brittany Gregory. Could not determine the exact cause of death due to the condition of the body, which showed signs of strangulation and severe head trauma from a blunt object. While there were no clear signs of sexual assault, it could not be completely ruled out. Jack consulted with a lawyer and chose to negotiate a plea bargain with the prosecution to reduce his sentence. The family agreed to this arrangement to avoid a lengthy trial. Brittany's mother expressed that she did not want the death penalty for Jack, believing it would be too easy for him. Instead, she wished for him to serve a life sentence in prison, enduring the consequences of his actions. Jack mentioned that Brittany asked him for a ride to see her boyfriend, and he agreed. He took his friend Tommy along and left with Brittany. However, they stopped, and Jack began smoking weed in front of her, which angered Brittany. She yelled at him and hit his hands. In response, Jack became violent and punched Brittany in the face, only stopping when she stopped moving. Realizing she was dead, he buried her, but no one believed his account of what happened. The forensic report revealed that Brittany had been strangled and suffered a severe head injury. The prosecution argued that the crime was sexually motivated. Ultimately, Jack was convicted and received a 30-year prison sentence without the possibility of parole. Hi everyone, thanks for returning. Let's unravel another perplexing mystery. The case of Yingying Zhang. Yingying Zhang was a student from China who came to the USA after being invited by the University of Illinois. She and her fiancé from China were planning a wedding. Sadly, she never got the chance to wear her wedding dress, as she was killed just 6 weeks after her arrival in the USA. Born on December 21, 1990, Yingying was a Chinese ecology student who graduated from Beijing University with a master's degree in environmental engineering. Yingying is a smart and cheerful person. In April 2017, 26-year-old Yingying traveled to Champaign, Illinois in the USA, invited by the University of Illinois to study for a year in the plant-growing department of natural resources. She intended to pursue graduate studies afterward. In China, Yingying met her fiancé, Alenka. They were classmates and top students, having dated for several years. The couple planned to marry once she returned home. On June 9, 2017, Yingying was leaving school to meet a real estate agent to sign a lease. At 1:39 p.m., she texted the agent to confirm that she would arrive around 2:10 p.m. This was the last text she sent, and she never arrived. At 2:40 p.m., the real estate agent texted her to ask where she was, but received no response. The agent eventually left to meet another client. As hours went by and Yingying did not return, her friends became increasingly worried. She was supposed to return to campus after signing the contract, as she had no other plans for the day. Her friends repeatedly called and messaged her, but she did not reply. Even Alenka could not contact her. This situation was very alarming. In the evening, Yingying still had not returned. Too worried, Yingying's friends contacted the police and reported her missing. At first, the police thought she might be somewhere with her friends. However, after questioning all of her friends and finding no new information, along with no activity recorded on her bank cards or phone, they began a search. Her phone was turned off at 2:28 p.m. on the day she went missing and was never turned back on. The police searched the university campus, but no one saw Enying. A $10,000 reward was offered for information about Enying's location. After discovering she was missing, her parents and Alenka traveled to Illinois and raised the reward to $50,000 for any information that could lead to her return. Both her parents and Alenka joined the search efforts and committed to staying until they found she. The FBI joined the investigation. They tracked her phone, which had been detected at a bus stop close to the campus. Enying did not have a car and relied on public transportation, particularly buses. CCTV footage showed Enying boarding a bus at 1:35 p.m. She was supposed to transfer to another bus at 1:52 p.m. but missed it. Cameras then captured her walking to the next bus stop. While she was waiting, a black four-door Saturn Astra drove by, circled back, and stopped near her at around 2:03 p.m. After a brief conversation with the driver, Enying got into the car and left. This was the last time she was seen on surveillance cameras. The driver was the last person known to have seen her, but the license plate number was not shown on the footage. The FBI needs to determine who was driving the car. They found 18 black four-door Saturn Astras registered in the area. One notable feature of the car, as seen in surveillance footage, was the cracked rims. After examining all 18 cars, they identified one that matched the description and also had the same sunroof. The car belonged to 28-year-old Brent Christensen. Brent grew up in Stevens Point, Wisconsin, and married his high school sweetheart Michelle Zortman in 2011. 2 years later, the couple moved to Champaign, Illinois, where he entered graduate school at the University of Illinois and worked as a teaching assistant. He left graduate school in 2016. Brent was considered a family man and had no criminal record. When FBI agents asked Brent about his whereabouts, he couldn't remember, mentioning he might have been sleeping at home or playing video games. His wife, Michelle, who he said he had an open relationship with, was away with another man. Brent allowed the agents to search his apartment and car. They discovered that a section of the car's interior, near the front passenger door, had been cleaned thoroughly while the rest of the car was still dirty. This was odd because cars are usually cleaned completely unless there is a specific reason for cleaning only part of it. A quick inspection of the apartment did not reveal any clues, so the agents took Brent to the police station for more questioning. At first, Brent denied knowing Enying or being involved in her situation. However, when shown surveillance footage, he admitted that he had been passing by and seen a girl who looked very upset. He said that he stopped to help her and she said she was late for a meeting, so he offered her a ride, which she accepted. He claimed that after suddenly taking a wrong turn a few blocks later, Enying became frightened and tried to open the locked front passenger door. He then stopped to let her out. After she escaped from the car, he never saw her again. When the police and Agent Igor asked him for a more detailed description of Enying, but he had difficulty distinguishing people of Asian descent. As a result, he became a suspect. There was only circumstantial evidence against him, not enough to make an arrest, so the police had to release Brent. However, they decided to follow him, monitor his activities, and gather more evidence of his possible involvement in Enying's disappearance. They realized that Brand was the person they needed to investigate. The FBI seized his phone, computer, camera, and other digital devices for analysis. They soon discovered that Brent was hiding important information. In March 2017, he visited a psychologist and revealed during his sessions that he was obsessed with thoughts of murder and fascinated by serial killers. He claimed that he had learned how to kill without leaving any evidence to avoid detection. Brent also confided in the psychologist that his life was falling apart. He had started drinking regularly and his wife Michelle, who was having an affair, had asked him for a divorce. Brent did not want to end the marriage. It was also revealed that Brent had met a woman named Gray Tora on a dating website. They began dating and met at his home. They agreed that Brent would take the dominant role in their relationship while Tora would be submissive. Brent even introduced Tora to his wife, who knew about their open relationship and that Tora was also seeing other men for intimate encounters. Police later discovered that his computer search history included terms like kidnapping, hygiene products, and how to track an iPhone. It appeared that he was searching for information on how to kidnap someone, disable phone tracking, clean up blood, and track a girl. However, this information was not enough to make an arrest. More evidence or a confession was needed from him. The FBI agent asked Tora, Brent's new girlfriend, to assist in the investigation, and she agreed to cooperate with the wiretap. On June 29, Brent attended a memorial event for the missing Yingying girl, where her family desperately begged for her return. During the event, Brent drank, smiled, and even leaned in to sing softly to Dash. Afterwards, he used the Notes app on his phone to write, "It's me. She's number 13. She's gone forever," and he drew the number 13 on his hand. This made Tora shiver. Tora felt uncomfortable listening to Brent's story, but he continued, seemingly trying to impress her. Brent had no idea that she was cooperating with the FBI and recording everything he said. Meanwhile, a drunken Brent revealed the grisly details of Yingying's final moments, smiling as he spoke. He took off Yingying's clothes and began doing various things to her. She endured everything. He tried to strangle her for 10 minutes but then let her go. She was still breathing, and he was shocked to learn that she was still alive. She fought harder than anyone he had ever met. She was not the only person he had murdered. Now, there were 13 victims. Brent told Tora that he first committed this crime when he was 19 years old. He dragged a corpse into the bathroom of his apartment and hit her over the head with a baseball bat. He then stabbed her in the neck and decapitated her. In the recording, he compared himself to his idol, Ted Bundy, and bragged that he had more victims than Jeffrey Dahmer and John Gacy. He boasted that he had attracted national attention. These recordings became crucial evidence against him. Brent was arrested the next day. His apartment was thoroughly searched with luminol, revealing a bloody handprint on the wall next to Brent's bed and in the bathroom. There was also blood on the passenger door of his car. A large bloodstain was found on his mattress, and a cadaver dog detected the scent of human remains in the bathroom. DNA from Yingying's toothbrush was found on a baseball bat, mattress, carpet, and in the bathroom. Brent's GPS data confirmed that he was present at the crime scene at the time of the incident. Additionally, receipts for trash bags and cleaning products were found in his home, along with a large gym bag, likely used to discreetly transport the remains. That morning at 7:45 a.m., he bought a large bottle of cheap rum from a liquor store. When he got home, he drank heavily. Then drove around looking for victims while intoxicated. After a few hours, he spotted a student from the university, Emily Hogan, walking to a bus stop near the campus. He approached her and identified himself as an undercover police officer and asked her to get into his car for questioning. She refused and ran away. She later identified him and posted a warning on Facebook to warn others about the fake police in the area, which happened after the disappearance. After Emily rejected him, Brent sought out another victim and met a girl. He pretended to be a police officer and offered her a ride in his car. She believed him because he had a police badge, had a police radio, and drove a police car, so she got in. Once in the car, he drove home, confiscated her phone, and turned it off. Brent then tied her hands, took her to his apartment, raped and murdered her, and then dismembered her body. He bought cleaning supplies and attempted to clean both the house and the car, but investigators later discovered traces of blood hidden under the carpet and behind the baseboards. Brent claims the idea was spontaneous and unplanned. However, His computer search history suggests otherwise, suggesting he was prepared for it. Brent is charged with kidnapping, murder, and making false statements to a federal agent, and faces the death penalty. His trial began in June 2019. His lawyer argued that Brent had a difficult childhood, with his mother being an alcoholic and him not socializing with his siblings and lacking friends. During that time, he often contemplated ending his life and struggled with mental health issues, sleep problems, and substance abuse, which led him to seek help. His lawyer noted that Brent was not in a good mental state and was plagued by dark thoughts, especially after his wife mentioned divorce. This led to a downward spiral for him. At that moment, Brent was in the courtroom, wiping away tears. The attorney admitted Brent was guilty but asked the jury to give him a lenient sentence. During the trial, Brent's wife, Michelle, reported seeing a large gym bag and noted that Brent left with it on June 12. She said that there was no foul odor and that he easily threw the bag over his shoulder, leading her to believe that it could not have contained a body. It must have contained something light. However, she also acknowledged that the bag was large enough to hold a person and acknowledged that her husband could lift the weight of a girl. Michelle noticed new cleaning products in the house and stains on the carpet. Brent explained that he had a nosebleed, which caused the stains. So he purchased a cleaning product to try to clean the carpet. Despite the large stain, Michelle didn't find this suspicious. Calls from prison were recorded. During one call, Michelle told Brent that Tora had set him up. In court, Brent Christensen confessed to everything but didn't disclose the location of the bodies. On July 18, 2019, after 2 hours of deliberation, the jury found Brent guilty on all charges, and he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Later, Michelle relocated to another state and changed her last name to begin a new life. After the trial, Tora sought psychological help due to the traumatic experiences she had from hearing Brent's actions. A suicide note was discovered in Brent's cell, suggesting that he may have been planning to end his life or seek attention. He was then placed in solitary confinement and closely monitored. Although Brent claimed to have a 13th victim, no evidence of the existence of additional victims was ever found. He denied these allegations in court. The FBI analyzed 19 unsolved missing persons cases in Illinois and Wisconsin and submitted Brent's DNA for comparison, but no matches were found. It appears that Brent was just bragging to Tora and made up the story. Inying's family was not satisfied with the verdict. They felt that the killer deserved the death penalty. After learning that their daughter had been brutally murdered, all the parents wanted was to give Inying a proper burial. They were heartbroken to discover that their daughter's body would likely never be found. In their grief, they begged Brent to reveal the location of their daughter's remains. He told his lawyer that he had dismembered her body, put the pieces in 3 separate trash bags, and thrown them into a dumpster at his apartment complex. He also claimed that her phone, textbooks, and backpack were thrown into another dumpster, which was likely taken to a landfill. Police discovered that the trash at his apartment had been emptied 3 days after she went missing and the trash had been taken to a landfill. There, the trash had been compacted multiple times, mixed with other waste and scattered over a wide area, making it nearly impossible to find her remains. The only consolation for the family is that Brent will serve his sentence without parole, ensuring he cannot commit any more crimes. Hello again, true crime fans. We've got another mysterious case to explore. The case of Melinda Pliskovic. Melinda Pliskovic was born on January 5, 1968, in Strongsville, Ohio, a city near Cleveland with a population of about 45,000. This city is always quiet, calm, and safe. Residents often left their doors unlocked. At 24, Melinda married Bruce, and together they had 3 children, 2 daughters, Megan and Anna, and the younger son, Kyle, who has Down syndrome. The children give meaning to her life, and she devoted a lot of time to Kyle, striving to give the boy a fulfilling and happy life. The family lived in a spacious, cozy 2-story house and a large basement. Melinda worked as a math teacher and also coached the school football team. She leading an active and fulfilling life, while Bruce worked as an accountant. In 2015, their 19-year-old daughter Megan moved to another city to attend college. The eldest daughter, Anna, who was 20, had been engaged to her high school boyfriend, Jeffrey Scullin, also 20. Anna worked as a waitress, while Jeffrey was a technician who serviced heating systems. As they were planning their wedding, Anna discovered she was pregnant, which brought joy to the whole family. Anna's parents suggested that Jeffrey move in with them because the couple couldn't afford their own place. Anna and Jeffrey happily agreed because they needed both material and emotional support, along with help in taking care of the baby. Jeffrey moved in with Anna's family in June 2016, just before their daughter was born. The baby was born on July 3rd and was named Aurora. Everything went well. Melinda helped Anna take care of Aurora, helping the young couple save money for their wedding and buying a house. At that time, the household consisted of 6 people: Melinda, Bruce, Kyle, Anna, Jeffrey, and baby Aurora. Shortly after that, something unusual occurred. Melinda, Bruce, and Kyle went to visit relatives, leaving Anna and Jeffrey home with Aurora. In the evening, they noticed 4 people in their backyard, talking, smoking, and watching the house. This was alarming, as nothing like this had happened before. Jeffrey, feeling scared, called the police, but by the time they arrived, the strangers had already left. The officer checked the yard but found nothing suspicious and noted that there were no cameras around the house. The police left, advising them to call again if the strangers returned. In the days following the incident, Anna and Jeffrey were very cautious, frequently looking out the windows and ensuring no one was around. However, no one else came, and eventually, they forgot about the incident. In November 2016, Anna was home with Aurora, and she heard someone trying to open the back door. She thought it was Jeffrey or her parents had returned and forgotten the key. She picked up her daughter and went to the back door. As she approached the large glass sliding doors, she saw the figure of an unfamiliar man. It was clear he was neither her father nor Jeffrey. Terrified, she froze, unsure of what to do next. The man noticed Anna through the glass, looked at her, and then left. Panicking, she grabbed her phone, ran upstairs to her room, locked the door, and called the police. When the police arrived, the man was gone. The officer searched the area but found no signs of him. Anna couldn't describe the man because it was dark and she could only see his silhouette. In January 2017, Anna went back to work full-time at the restaurant. Around the same time, a troubling incident occurred, involving some strangers. Someone broke into Bruce's car and stole a laptop. The family believes that the strangers were following them, and this time, the strangers left no trace. A few months later, Anna, Jeffrey, and Aurora were home one evening, preparing for bed. She looked out the window and noticed 3 strangers standing in their backyard, watching them. She became very frightened and started to panic. She called the police, while Jeffrey, seeing the strangers, felt he needed to confront them. He grabbed a flashlight and went outside. When the strangers saw him, they ran away. The police arrived shortly after but found nothing. Shortly after this incident, another incident occurred. One evening, Anna was at home with Aurora, while Melinda was upstairs. Suddenly, she heard a noise at the back door. Someone was trying to open it again. She quietly approached the door to see who it was. This time, she saw 2 men dressed in dark clothing and hooded jackets, which obscured their faces. Unable to see them clearly, so she decided to scare them off. She screamed loudly, and it worked. The men were startled and ran away. Melinda, hearing her scream, rushed downstairs in a panic, shouting that the strangers had returned. Then, she called the police, who came to inspect the house and surrounding area, but found nothing suspicious. The entire family lived in fear, confused about why they were being watched and what the strangers wanted. Everyone was worried that they might be attacked. In September 2017, Melinda realized that her car's spare key was missing. It had always been kept in the same spot, and she was certain she hadn't misplaced it. The family feared that strangers had broken into their house and taken the keys. As time went on, they learned the reason behind the theft. The car's alarm frequently went off at night, and someone started the car and drove away. Bruce also discovered that nails had been placed in the tires of his car. Additionally, the family noticed that money was disappearing from their home. They called the police 3 times, but each time, the officers were unable to find any fingerprints or evidence of a break-in, as the intruders left no traces. In October 2017, another unsettling incident occurred. Melinda and Jeffrey were at home with Aurora when they heard someone trying to open the front door. Jeffrey walked the dog to the door to see what was going on. He saw a large man in dark clothing with his face covered standing outside. The dog barked, which frightened the intruder, causing him to flee. Melinda called the police again, but they found nothing. On October 23, 2017, Jeffrey, Aurora, and Bruce went to the restaurant where Anna worked and they had dinner together. Melinda and Kyle stayed home, and something terrible happened that night. After dinner, Jeffrey, along with Aurora and Bruce, headed home in separate cars. Melinda's car was parked outside, the front door was closed, and the dog was outside. Bruce knocked on the house door, but nobody answered. He knocked again, and his son Kyle eventually opened the door. Kyle is depressed and doesn't say anything, so he can't tell Bruce what happened. Bruce felt something was wrong with Melinda. As he entered the kitchen and discovered she lying face down on the floor, covered in blood. Jeffrey held Aurora as he entered the kitchen. When he saw Melinda with gunshot wounds to her head, Bruce screamed in shock, took Aurora from Jeffrey, and urged his son Kyle to come outside with him. Jeffrey quickly rushed into the street and called 911. Telling them they had just come from a restaurant and found Melinda's body in the kitchen. Later, Bruce also called 911, he feeling frustrated that the police had not responded to their previous reports about strangers watching them and trying to break into their home, and now Melinda was dead. The police and ambulance quickly arrived at the scene, they finding 49-year-old Melinda deceased. They began a thorough investigation of the house and surrounding area, then, they found a clue. In Jeffrey's car, they found a gun and a bloody knife, concealed under his clothes in the back seat. He couldn't explain where they came from, so both the knife and the gun were sent for analysis. Additionally, blood was discovered on the car door and on his sweatpants. Immediately after that, Jeffrey was taken in for questioning. He stated that he had spoken to Melinda the day before her death, when she expressed a desire to go to a restaurant with him and take Kyle along. She even asked Jeffrey to contact his mother to arrange a meeting. However, then due to a leg injury, so she changed her mind and decided to stay home with Kyle. The following afternoon, he visited Melinda. She had just returned from a doctor's appointment and seemed fine. He then went to his aunt's house, and later that evening, Melinda was found dead. When the police contacted his aunt, she denied having seen him that day. During questioning, Bruce, Melinda's husband, mentioned that in the afternoon, she sent him an unusual message, saying to meet at 4:30 in a beer restaurant. He found it odd because they typically discussed their plans over the phone beforehand. Before, she had never communicated to him in that manner, but at the time, he didn't think much of it. He just replied that he agreed, and then he went to the restaurant. Now, he realizes that the message had been written by someone else. Bruce arrived at the beer restaurant but didn't find Melinda there. After having a drink, he decided to go to the gym for a workout. While he was there, Jeffrey called to remind him about a meeting at the restaurant where Anna worked. Anna also called and asked if he would come. Bruce got to the restaurant after 7 p.m. By then, Jeffrey was already eating and drinking beer, but Melinda was still missing. Bruce asked Jeffrey where Melinda and Kyle were, but Jeffrey said they had no idea. Melinda's phone was off, which was unusual. They quickly finished their meal and prepared to go home. However, Jeffrey asked to stop at a gas station first and requested that Bruce accompany him to keep an eye on the baby, Aurora. They returned home and discovered Melinda's body. Investigators believe that Jeffrey killed Melinda before going to the restaurant and arranged the meeting there to create an alibi for himself. The autopsy revealed that Melinda had suffered 35 stab wounds to her back and 3 gunshot wounds to her head. Jeffrey and Anna were engaged and living with Anna's parents. Her parents have supported them in everything and are planning to buy a house for them with the money have saved. Although Jeffrey and Melinda occasionally had arguments, which is common in relationships between a son-in-law and wife's mother, but they didn't have any serious arguments. So what could Jeffrey's motives be? He was facing financial difficulties. He had quit his job and was only working part-time. With the wedding scheduled for October 28, 2017, just 5 days away, he didn't have enough money to pay for it. His credit card was locked, so he couldn't make any payments. Melinda was in charge of organizing the wedding and was responsible for paying the restaurant and other expenses. This situation could have led to an argument between them. He may be worried that she will tell Anna about his financial problems, causing the wedding to go off. Or maybe she found out something else about him. Jeffrey's acquaintances mentioned that he always hated Melinda. It also seemed odd that Jeffrey didn't introduce his parents to her family. Although they wanted to arrange a meeting, but he kept scheduling and then canceling it, claiming his parents were unavailable. However, when researchers interviewed Jeffrey's parents, they revealed they had no knowledge of these meetings, as Jeffrey never invited them. Despite all this, Melinda's relatives still do not believe he is guilty. They were convinced that the murder was committed by some strangers who had been observing the house. Strangely enough, these strangers began observing the house after Jeffrey had moved in. It is also worth noting that no other homes were followed by these strangers and the police never identified them. DNA tests confirmed that the blood on the knife and door belonged to Melinda, and Jeffrey's DNA was found on the knife handle. Forensic examination of the gun showed that the gun found in Jeffrey's car was involved in her shooting. Subsequently, Jeffrey was arrested and charged with Melinda's murder. He failed a lie detector test and later confessed to the crime during further questioning. He said that when he arrived at the house, Melinda was furious. She pointed a gun at him, screamed, and threatened him. He grabbed the gun from her and shot her 3 times, claiming he didn't remember stabbing her 35 more times. People wonder why Jeffrey continues to attack Melinda, even though there is no longer any threat to his life. No one believed his story. After Jeffrey's arrest, the strangers watching their house suddenly disappeared and everything stopped. Investigators believe that all of the incidents involving strangers were planned by Jeffrey. They may have been his friends or he hired someone to intimidate Melinda's family for a year and a half. It seemed like Jeffrey was trying to mislead the police and derail the investigation. It was also odd that Melinda's family, despite being wealthy, did they not install CCTV cameras. It turned out Jeffrey opposed these security measures, including tracking apps, possibly fearing exposure. Everything pointed back to Jeffrey. He arranged the dinner at the restaurant, delayed leaving, and then took Bruce to the gas station. Strangers began watching the house after Jeffrey moved in and vanished after his arrest. Melinda's funeral was held on October 28, 2017, which was supposed to be the wedding day for Anna and Jeffrey, but the wedding did not happen. At the funeral, relatives, friends, neighbors, students, and colleagues remembered Melinda as a caring wife, a loving grandmother, and a beloved teacher who dedicated 27 years of service to the school. She was also a coach and mentor. Jeffrey attended the funeral alone with other relatives. Kyle, who witnessed his mother's murder, never accepted that she was gone and continues to wait for her return. In addition to the murder charge, Jeffrey was also charged with assault, falsifying evidence, giving false testimony, and endangering children. During the trial, the prosecution argued that the murder was not self-defense. Jeffrey had meticulously planned it and staged break-ins to mislead the investigation. Jeffrey Scullin did not plead guilty but also did not contest the charges. Melinda's family requested that he be denied parole to prevent him from harming anyone else. Jeffrey was found guilty and sentenced to life imprisonment, with the possibility of parole in 33 years. Hello, crime enthusiasts, are you ready for another chilling investigation? The case of Jesse McFadden. At that time, Holly was 35 years old. She had 3 children from a previous relationship: 13 years old Tiffany, 17 years old Raleigh Allen, and 15 years old Michael Mayo. Each child had a different father. Holly was married to Joe, a prominent man, for 13 years. He was a wonderful father and stepfather to all the children. Even after their divorce, Joe continued to care for the children as if they were his own. He also wanted to adopt Raleigh and Michael, but he was never able to do so. Holly's new husband, Jesse McFadden, was not as good a father as Joe. At 39 years old, Jesse had a troubling past, including a criminal record. In 2003, he was charged with assaulting and raping a 15-year-old girl at knife point. He received a 20-year prison sentence, but got out 3 years early, in October 2020, after serving 17 years. Despite his history, Jesse was not placed on the sex offender list or the list of potentially dangerous criminals, which the authorities should have done. As a result, he kept his past from Holly and portrayed himself as a model stepfather. He attended her children's sports games and engaging with the family. His past remained hidden, and he was seen as a good person. He gives the impression of being a kind man and regularly attended the local church. Holly had no idea that she was getting involved with a very dangerous man. Jesse was about to go crazy and commit a heinous crime. In 1916, while serving time in prison, he had his mobile phone confiscated. On the phone, authorities found photos, videos, and text messages involving a 16-year-old girl named Caitlin. Her grandfather accidentally discovered this sensitive content and reported it to the police, thereby leading to an investigation in the prison. At that time, Jesse was considered a model prisoner, participating in almost all activities, which under state law, made him eligible for parole after serving 85% of his sentence. Despite meeting all the conditions for parole, Jesse lost this privilege due to the incident involving Caitlin. However, he eventually managed to resolve the situation and secure his parole. After being released from prison, Jesse followed the rule of reporting to the sheriff's office every 90 days. He did this so discreetly that Holly, the children, and neighbors were unaware of his situation. Holly, his wife, was unaware that he was forbidden from being in places with children, such as schools and sports matches. Meanwhile, Jesse was still under investigation and awaiting trial for explicit photos of Caitlin he had corresponded with while in prison. The trial was delayed until 2023 due to a series of unfortunate incidents. The prosecutor handling the case was suspended, and Jesse's lawyer passed away. On May 1, 2023, as the trial is about to begin, a terrible tragedy occurred the day before. On the morning of May 1, 2023, the parents of Ivy and Brittany became worried. Ivy and Brittany are Tiffany's friends. They were best friends and often spent time together, including sleeping together overnight. Everyone expected Ivy and Brittany to return home after a sleepover on April 29th, but both did not return. Initially, their parents weren't concerned, as the girls frequently stayed overnight at each other's houses, and they assumed their daughters were spending another night with Tiffany. However, by the morning of May 1st, they still cannot contact their children. Ivy and Brittany did not respond to their parents' calls or text messages and could not be located using the Life 360 app. Ivy and Brittany's parents also couldn't contact Tiffany and her family to confirm if their daughters were there. Because they were increasingly worried, they reported Ivy and Brittany missing to the police that same day. The police issued a missing persons alert for Ivy and Brittany and immediately began an investigation. Based on information from the girls' parents, they decided to check Jesse's house, where Ivy and Brittany were before they went missing. Upon arrival, the police officers knocked on the door but received no response. Looking through the windows, they saw something unusual inside, so they decided to enter the house. The scene inside the house horrified all the police. Inside, they found 7 mutilated bodies. Some people can only be identified through forensic examination. Among them was Jesse himself, his wife Holly, Riley, Michael, Tiffany, Brittany, and Ivy. All the victims were shot in the head with a 9mm pistol. Bodies were scattered throughout the house. The detectives determined that the murderer was a former criminal named Jesse McFadden. He attacked all the victims and then ended his life. The probable reason was that on May 1st, he was supposed to start a trial that had been postponed for a long time. It is presumed that he did it because he could no longer hide his dark criminal past. Perhaps his wife, Holly, discovered it, or he was worried that she would soon find out, so he killed his entire family to take his secret to the grave. After the officers reviewed Jesse's cell phone, they were able to clarify the motive. On April 30th, he contacted Caitlin, a girl he had been messaging from prison, using a fake account under the name Holly. He accused her of not withdrawing the charges against him, which he claimed was destroying his well-established life. He explained that after being released 2 years ago, he had rebuilt his life. He found a high-paying marketing job, started a family. He tried to convince Caitlin to recant her testimony to stop the trial. He argued that he had a good family and promising future. He sent several angry messages, asserting that he would never return to prison, regardless of the cost. The police concluded that he was enraged because he couldn't control his accuser, Caitlin. Detectives contacted Crystal Strong, a 36-year-old woman who was Jesse's first victim. In 2002, when she was only 15, Jesse attacked her with a knife. She was shocked to hear that he might be released from prison, believing he should remain behind bars forever. Crystal learns that the man who brutally sexually assaulted her has been pardoned. Despite the decision being made, but she still asked Oklahoma authorities to prevent his release because she believed he was dangerous in nature. At that time, she feared for her safety. After the attack, she detailed her ordeal to the police. Jesse, then 19 and dating her friend, kidnapped her from her home while she was alone. He took her to a secluded house in his pickup truck, where he chained her to a bed and brutally raped her. Despite her pleas for him to stop and release her, but he threatened her with a knife and continued his assault. Fortunately, he didn't kill her. Jesse instructed Crystals to wash off the evidence and clean her clothes. She agreed but instead used the opportunity to escape through the back door. She was crying and ran about half a kilometer to a neighbor's house to call the police. Following this, she underwent an extensive rehabilitation process, which helped her return to a normal life. She relocated to Kansas, where she hid for years due to the trauma of the brutal attack. Although doctors initially believed she couldn't have children, thankfully, their predictions were wrong. Crystal now has 4 children, which she views as a miracle. Crystal is confused that the police released Jesse, a dangerous criminal, too soon, even though she warned that he could not be reformed. It is also confusing why he was freed early despite being intoxicated. She believes the legal system has failed them, especially when he murdered 6 people in a brutal and painful manner. The victims' families also expressed their anger over Jesse's early release. It's hard to imagine how this cruel person managed to pretend to be a loving husband, a respectable neighbor, and a caring stepfather. None of his close friends suspect his horrific past. Although he regularly interacted with various people since December 2020, they were all shocked when the truth emerged. Ivy and Brittany's parents remember that their daughter and Tiffany were very close and often visited each other's homes. Ivy and Brittany's parents were familiar with Jesse and Holly and communicated with them regularly. They did not suspect Jesse, although he occasionally appeared strange and withdrawn. He had the odd habit of controlling Holly's and the children's movements, but they did not think much of it. Ivy and Brittany, who frequently stayed overnight at their homes, never mentioned anything negative about Jesse or his behavior. Ivy and Brittany never showed signs of bruises or injuries that would suggest abuse. During the investigation, it was discovered that Holly learned about Jesse's criminal past shortly before the tragedy. Holly's ex-husband found out about Jesse's criminal record by checking the database. He informed Holly, but Jesse acted quickly to cover up his past. Jesse hired an actress to convince Holly that the sexual assault allegations against him were a misunderstanding. The actress admitted that after the breakup, she accused Jesse of violence out of anger. However, she retracted the accusation after realizing she was wrong. Holly, unfortunately, believed this lie. Inside the house, police discovered even more terrifying clues. They found that all of Jesse's victims had been subjected to severe torture. The house resembled a torture chamber, with several beds equipped with chains and locks to restrain people. In the kitchen, police found a chain with a lock and different torture devices. The shocking clues are not just that. Bottles of lubricant and other sexual items were strewn around the house. Illegal substances and their paraphernalia were found across all rooms, including candies laced with similar content. Police also discovered other strange-looking objects and various blood-stained items, such as clothes, rags, and bed linen. Altogether, these clues indicate that the crime was horrific, revealing that Jesse's victims endured brutal torture before being killed. Holly and her children were likely tortured for several days. On April 29th, when Ivy and Brittany did visit Tiffany, they fell into a trap. They were tortured. Then, as they struggled to escape, but Jesse captured and killed them. During a house search, several laptops and mobile phones belonging to Jesse were discovered. These devices contained photos and videos documenting his torture activities. There was so much shocking evidence that the police couldn't collect everything in one day. Additional evidence of the brutal torture was gathered a few days later. A second search was conducted, uncovering more hidden evidence in the house and revealing new details. Receipts were found for purchases of locks, chains, and other items, shows that Jesse had a plan to control the victims. In addition, 5 other cell phones were found, along with Jesse's notebook, which contained the names of his recent victims. Jesse noted that he wanted to start a new life and become a better person, but no matter how much he wanted to, he couldn't change the past. He also did not hesitate to impersonate Ivy. For example, Ivy's mother said the last message she received from her daughter was on Saturday, April 29th. They agreed that Ivy would come home on Sunday, April 30th. However, on the morning of April 30th, she received a text saying Ivy and her friends were going to another city and couldn't return that evening. Therefore, she didn't worry until the morning of May 1st. Although there were reasons for concern, she didn't notice them right away. The communication style of the message was unlike her daughter's. She thought it was because Ivy was in a hurry to get ready for the trip. Only now does she realize that her daughter was probably no longer alive at that point, and it was Jesse who was messaging her. The hardest thing for Holly's ex-husband, who is also the father of Riley, Michael, and Tiffany, is that he has been unable to provide any information to the police. Holly's ex-husband accused Jesse not only of the crimes he committed but also of his lies. He criminal tricked Holly by hiring an actress and hid his violent nature from friends, neighbors, and his new family for 2 years. The parents of Ivy and Brittany frequently visited their home, but no one suspected Jesse could be dangerous or doubted his identity. Detectives spoke with Jesse's former cellmate and were even more amazed at his deceptive skills. The cellmate, who spent almost every hour of the day with Jesse, only realized something was off after 6 months. Initially, Jesse seemed just like an eccentric and awkward individual. Nearly every conversation with him led to the topic of sex, revealing his obsession with it. At a medical facility, the cellmate saw Jesse stalking nurses. When he asked Jesse about his conviction, he got a vague response. Jesse mentioned a much lesser charge than what he had committed. The truth came out during an incident involving a contraband phone, which worsened the atmosphere in the cell. From then on, the cellmate was constantly tense, unable to sleep peacefully whenever Jesse was around. The tragic death of 6 people has caused strong public outrage. People were shocked by the incident. 6 innocent individuals were killed: Holly, her 3 children, and 2 teenage friends, Ivy and Brittany. The public accused state police of negligence, ignoring evidence, and failing to monitor dangerous criminals and manage parole for Jesse. Everyone was outraged, questioning why no one recognized how dangerous Jesse was. They believed that if his danger had been known, people would have avoided interacting with him, potentially preventing this tragedy. Even now, this case leaves more questions than answers. Holly's behavior is also unclear. The police are exploring all possibilities, including the idea that she not only knew about Jesse's past but also became an accomplice. Holly's mother firmly denies this theory, insisting that she was a loving, caring mother who could never harm her children. The police are still considering the possibility that Holly was an accomplice, but things spiraled out of control, leading Jesse to kill her and then end his life. However, these claims have yet to be confirmed or refuted. The investigation is ongoing. Jesse McFadden's family has been plagued by legal issues. His younger brother, Cody, has been involved in legal trouble since 2010. Cody was arrested for kidnapping a woman, locking her in a dog cage, assaulting her, and torturing her. Cody's case is still pending in court. Hello, crime enthusiasts, are you ready for another chilling investigation? The case of Zara Alina. Zara was born in the UK in the winter of 1986. She was the first of 5 children born to a young single mother who lived with her own parents. The family had immigrated from Pakistan in 1968. Zara grew up in a close-knit, multi-generational household. Although they didn't have much money, her family placed a strong emphasis on education and was committed to ensuring Zara had everything she needed to lead a fulfilling life, including love, support, and a good education. During her childhood, Zara enjoyed dancing and swimming. She aspired to become a lawyer. She had a friendly nature and a cheerful spirit. As a teenager, she had the opportunity to travel around England and visit museums and galleries. These experiences expanded to trips throughout Europe. After graduating from high school, Zara enrolled in law school at the University of Westminster. She showed a passionate and determined spirit. Her commitment to justice was evident in the auditorium, where she actively supported refugees fleeing violence. She also volunteered at soup kitchens for the homeless. Those who knew Zara said she left a trail of joy wherever she went. She was also very hardworking and managed to cover all her own expenses. In fact, she worked as a salesperson at a local clothing store and was well acquainted with everyone in the area, from teenagers to seniors. She greeted everyone with kindness and was always willing to help. Sometimes, she uses her money to take stray cats to the vet, care for them at home, and encourage neighbors to adopt them. An important person in Zara's life is her friend Cassie Peters. They visit each other regularly or talk on the phone almost every day. By 2002, after passing her exams and completing her first year, Zara was offered a job at the Crown Prosecution Service. This was a crucial step towards becoming a fully fledged solicitor, a goal she was determined to achieve. On her first day, she took a cheerful selfie and sent it to friends and family. At 35, Zara got a new job, which further strengthened her confidence in her plans to start a family soon. Near her home lived a man named Jordan McSweeney. Jordan was several years younger than her. At the age of 13, he had already faced charges in a youth court in Kent for various offenses committed between 2006 and 2009. In August 2010, when he was 17, he was convicted of assaulting a girl, which resulted in her having a swollen eye. For this, he received a 4-month community service order. 11 years later, he assaulted another woman and was given a 3-year community service order. By the start of the 2020s, Jordan was 28 years old. Jordan has a troubling history, with convictions for 9 offenses, including theft, assaulting police and the public, vehicle theft, traffic violations, committing crimes while out on bail, and shoplifting. On his profile on a popular social media platform, he boasted about owning many knives and promoted his criminal lifestyle through photos and quotes. He even shared fake wanted posters claiming he was being sought by the FBI. After serving time for criminal damage, racially aggravated stalking, and illegal possession of a knife, he was released on June 17, 2022. After his release, Jordan violated all terms of his agreement and missed 2 consecutive appointments with his probation officer. As a result, police revoked his benefits and began the process of revoking his parole, with the intention of sending him back to prison on June 22, 2022. 2 days later, on June 25, police went to Jordan's mother's house to arrest him but found he was not there. That night, Zara had planned to meet a friend, after speaking to her aunt on the phone and mentioning her plans to go out. Her aunt advised her to stay safe, but Zara reassured herself that she would not be going far from home and felt confident in the safety of the route she was taking, as she was very familiar with the area. Zara then met her friend at a local bar called the Big Spoon in Ilford, a vibrant and diverse area in London's West End, ideal for dinner and conversation. The girls went to the bar before going to another nearby venue. In the bar, Zara only drinks water, not alcohol. By this time, Jordan had had several drinks at other nightclubs. He had a disturbing idea in mind and was determined to carry it out. He planned to find a woman to attack that night. Surveillance footage captured him at the bar entrance, where he was seen hugging women without their consent and trying to kiss them. He was particularly aggressive towards one of the staff, despite her clearly feeling uncomfortable, and he was eventually kicked out of the bar after 11 p.m. His inappropriate behavior was recorded by security cameras as he left. While walking along Fort Street towards the park, he noticed a woman hurrying by and began to follow her closely. Despite her attempts to evade him, he was outside waiting when she entered a store. After she carefully exited, Jordan trailed her again. However, when the woman finally entered her home, Jordan had to move on. At around 2 a.m., when the streets were fairly deserted, Jordan saw another woman walking. Surveillance footage shows him quickly approaching her, but 2 passers-by noticed something was wrong and helped the woman get home safely. Meanwhile, Zara and her friend decided to leave the bar at 2 a.m. The friend took a taxi, but Zara, thinking the distance was short and the weather was nice, opted to walk. She headed to Cranbrook Street, which was well lit and about a 10-minute walk from her home. It was then that Jordan spotted her. Jordan followed Zara for approximately 800 meters before seizing her. He approached her from behind, covered her mouth with one hand, and started to strangle her with the other before dragging her into a wooded path. There, he sexually assaulted and violently beat her. Jordan then returned home at around 2:30 a.m. On June 26, 2022, Zara was found on the pavement in Ilford with her belongings scattered along the pavement. She was brutally beaten, partially stripped of her clothes and lying on the side of the road. A passerby performed CPR until an ambulance arrived, but sadly, Zara died in hospital at 9:58 a.m. on Sunday. During this time, Jordan was captured on the park's security camera. Police visited Zara's grandmother to ask her to identify her granddaughter in the bar's security camera footage. After she confirmed it was Zara, police explained to her what had happened. Later, the police conducted a thorough investigation in the area where Zara was found, collecting surveillance camera footage to track the movements of her attacker. This investigation, along with bloody fingerprints found near the scene, led them to identify Jordan as the suspect. They tracked his location using surveillance cameras and obtained images of the prime suspect. Police then arrested Jordan as he slept in his trailer. He did not resist arrest. Inside his trailer, police found blood-stained clothing and shoes. Despite hours of questioning, he remained silent. The crime prompted probation officer Justin Russell to point out several mistakes the probation department made in handling Jordan's case. He noted that Jordan had been a felon for 16 years, both in prison and after his release, which classified him as a dangerous offender. However, he did not receive the appropriate level of supervision. Had more drastic measures been taken, he could have been sent back to prison after missing scheduled meetings with his probation officer. September 30th was set for the trial, but it was postponed. Zara's family then held a vigil in her memory, along the route she was supposed to take home, symbolizing her unfinished journey. Many people dressed in white to attend the vigil. The event was attended by more than 120 organizations dedicated to women's rights and the fight against violence. During a preliminary hearing at East London Crown Court, forensic scientist Nadia Perso said that local police could have done more to locate Jordan before he attacked Zara. Nadia believed that the case deserved more media attention and suggested that the inquest should also consider the actions of prison staff and probation officers. Nadia estimated that the inquest would take about a month. On November 16, 2022, Jordan did not attend the hearing, despite being told he needed to attend via video link. However, he later pleaded guilty. Prosecutor Oliver Glasgow described him as unfit for bail, a view supported by Judge Chima Grove. Sentencing was adjourned until December 14, 2022. Jordan McSweeney was sentenced to 33 years in prison for the murder of Zara Alina. Jordan and his representatives appealed the verdict, but the sentence was upheld at 33 years. Hello, crime enthusiasts, are you ready for another chilling investigation? The case of Charlotte Brown. 20-year-old Charlotte Brown from Essex, a county in the southeast of England, was having a conversation with her sister Katie and a friend. They were discussing where to meet a young man. Charlotte shared that she was looking for a serious, long-term relationship and wasn't very interested in dating sites. However, her sister suggested a new dating site to her, and after some consideration, Charlotte signed up. Soon after, she received a message from a 24-year-old named Jack Shepherd. They began chatting online and got to know each other better. Things were going well. Jack and Charlotte planned to meet in person. However, on the day of their meeting, Jack sent Charlotte a text message apologizing and explaining that he couldn't meet because he was getting back together with his ex-girlfriend. Feeling frustrated, Charlotte decided to block Jack and continued her search for love on the site. A few months later, Jack reached out to Charlotte again. He expressed his sincere apologies for disappointing her and asked if they could meet to make amends. Charlotte agreed to go on a date with him. On December 8, 2015, Jack wanted to impress Charlotte, so he took her to the Shard, a well-known skyscraper in London. While enjoying wine and conversation, they seemed to be having a great time. Charlotte took photos and shared them with her sister. Later, Jack invited her to his boathouse to continue their evening, and she agreed. After Jack paid the bill, they took a taxi to his place, which was 10 miles away from Charlotte's home in Hammersmith. When they arrived at the boathouse and had a drink, Jack bragged about his boat and suggested they go out. Charlotte loved the idea, as she was hoping for a romantic adventure. She sent a text message to her sister, letting her know about the boat trip, but her sister appeared worried about the matter. Charlotte reassured her sister that everything would be fine. Charlotte had a great time on the boat, capturing the moments in photos and videos to send to her sister. They were sailing along the Thames one December night. Charlotte was laughing and even shouting with excitement. However, Jack began to speed up, and soon they were going twice the speed limit on the river. Witnesses observed the boat speeding along the Thames. Suddenly, there was a loud bang, followed by a cry for help. People called 911 to report that someone had fallen into the river and needed help nearby. Jack was holding on to the sides of the boat with his hands. The boat capsized near Onslow Bridge after hitting a submerged log. Police arrived at the scene and began searching the area, assisted by officers from the Marine Corps Support Unit and Air Support. At 11:40 p.m. that night, they found Jack clinging to the side of a boat, but Charlotte was missing. The Air Support Unit lit up the river with powerful searchlights to search for the Charlotte. When the lifeboat arrived, they discovered Charlotte, but she showed no signs of life. They attempted CPR on Charlotte, but it was to no avail. Her body grew colder and colder, and by the time she reached the hospital, she was pronounced dead. An autopsy revealed that Charlotte had died from prolonged exposure to cold water. The next day, the police brought in Jack Shepherd for questioning. Meanwhile, Charlotte's sister Katie had been texting her and was growing increasingly worried as she had not received a response throughout the night. Although Katie was busy with work during the day and could not be reached, it was clear that all of her texts and calls had gone unanswered. Additionally, Charlotte had not shown up for work, which was very unusual for her. Charlotte's mother was at home when the doorbell rang. She opened the door to two police officers who delivered the devastating news that Charlotte had died. This left her family and friends utterly heartbroken. During the investigation, Jack mentioned that he had met Charlotte around 6 p.m. for a date. He said they had never met before but had planned to go to the Shard and then return to his boat. Jack noted that he had trouble recalling the details of the evening. Jack said that he had been the one steering the boat. They had then switched positions. When Charlotte was steering the boat, he moved to a seat while holding on to the crossbar because of the speed. Jack mentioned that there were life jackets on the boat, but they had not worn them because he had not told Charlotte about them. He also noted that he was not sure if she knew how to swim because they had not discussed it. They had been drinking on the boat, but his memory of the whole thing was hazy. After the incident, Jack went to a restaurant, ordered a bottle of wine, had a meal, and drank another bottle of wine before taking a taxi home. He said his memory of the entire evening was hazy. According to Jack, Charlotte wanted to steer the boat and he allowed her to do so. His memory is unclear due to his intoxication, but he always remembered that Charlotte was at the helm. He said that when he got into the water, he called out to Charlotte, but she was gone. He was eventually rescued from the river, but Charlotte's bag, which contained documents, keys, wallet, and mobile phone, was never found because it had fallen into the water. During police questioning of Jack, he appeared very upset. He was described as a well-dressed, well-educated young man who repeatedly claimed that Charlotte was the boatman and blamed her for the incident. Shockingly, many who knew Charlotte or heard of what happened were largely critical of her. Jack told the police that he had taken about 10 girls out on his boat before, returning to the house for fun afterward. When asked whether he took all of his dates on the river, he stated that these boat rides were simply part of his usual routine to impress and charm girls. The police then inspected the boat and discovered it was old, had been involved in multiple accidents, and had undergone several repairs. It had many other serious flaws, making it dangerously unsafe. Charlotte's friend Lodi became curious about Jack and sought to learn more about him. She discovered that Jack was 30 years old, a successful web designer and developer, and enjoyed flaunting his wealth. Jack created his own online dating site that focused on facilitating brief encounters, typically for 1 or 2 meetings. On Facebook, Jack had numerous photos of himself, both alone and with friends and women. He referred to himself as Captain Jack and often bragged about himself. The police wanted to question Jack again, but he arrived with his lawyer, who presented a statement on his behalf. In this statement, Jack claimed that his memories of that night were unclear and incomplete. He confirmed that he was on a boat with Charlotte and that a girl was driving at the time of the accident. However, he had no recollection of the crash or the events leading up to it, except that Charlotte was at the helm of the boat. After the lawyer read the statement, Jack was asked numerous questions, but he chose not to respond to any of them. When an officer criticized him for not giving Charlotte a chance to save herself by not providing her with a life jacket, Jack remained silent. Later, the police chief learned that the day after the accident, on February 9th, Jack went directly from the police station to the registry office to apply for a marriage license with his longtime girlfriend. In November, they welcomed a child. This means that after Charlotte's death, Jack got married and then moved to Wales with his wife. He wanted to get away from where Charlotte died and start over somewhere where no one would recognize him. He wanted to forget the past and start a new life. The police decided not to close the case because they sensed something was off. They quietly kept an eye on Jack's activities. The search for Charlotte's belongings, which were lost in the river, continued. Eventually, they discovered her bag and mobile phone. It took nearly a year to recover, clean, and dry these items. When the experts examined the phone, they found a video from that night. The footage revealed that Jack was the one driving the boat, not Charlotte. It became clear that Jack was attempting to shift the blame to Charlotte for her own death. In the video, Charlotte could be heard shouting that the boat was going too fast, highlighting that Jack had lied about who was actually at the helm. They inspected the boat again. The police discovered life jackets hidden on the boat, which no one had used because Jack had not informed anyone about them. It was concluded that it was unlikely the girl was both driving the boat and filming the video at the same time, especially since Jack was frequently seen on camera standing behind the wheel. On September 20, 2017, Jack was charged with manslaughter due to gross negligence. By October 2017, he appeared in court and was released on bail. However, on January 26, 2018, Jack failed to appear in court and pleaded not guilty to the charges against him. Meanwhile, the trial for Charlotte's death was approaching quickly. It was mid-May when Jack informed his legal team that he would not attend the hearing. He was determined not to go. When the trial began in July 2018, Jack followed through with his plan and did not appear in court. In contrast, Charlotte's family attended throughout the trial. They were understandably upset and informed on the first day that Jack would not be present. Jack's lawyers communicated with him online, sharing court documents for him to review and comment on. However, they did not know his exact location. Many were angry when Jack chose not to attend the trial, despite having legal representation. He seemed to believe that he was above the law and did not feel the need to be present because he claimed innocence. Jack repeatedly asserted his innocence and tried to blame Charlotte. Instead of appearing in court to defend himself or claim he did nothing wrong, he simply chose to hide. The court had to determine that Jack, as the owner of the boat, had a responsibility to ensure the safety of everyone on board, including Charlotte. The judge spent about 20 minutes looking at photos of the boat because they wanted to get an idea of the type of vessel Jack was using. All of Jack's girlfriends discovered that he had purchased an old boat at a low price from a website that sells second-hand items. Although the boat was in poor condition and required significant repairs, Jack, who had a good income, chose not to invest in fixing it. Instead, he used the boat for evening outings with his girlfriends. The court also found out that Jack had a date in August, shortly before he met Charlotte. As usual, their evening included a boat ride, during which they were stopped by the river police. The officers warned them about the importance of wearing life jackets to prevent any accidents. Jack had met this girl, like Charlotte and the others, on a dating site. They enjoyed their time together. He took her to the Shard, bought her drinks, invited her to his home, and then took her for a boat ride. However, he drove the boat at such a high speed that she became very frightened. Finally, she asked Jack to stop, let her off the shore, and call a taxi for her. The girl was called to court to testify. On July 10, 2018, Jack Shepherd was found guilty of manslaughter. Shortly after, news emerged that he had gone into hiding. His legal team tried to reach him, but he did not respond. On July 26, Jack was sentenced to 6 years in prison for the manslaughter of Charlotte Brown, yet his whereabouts remained unknown. Police launched an international search for Jack and offered a $25,000 reward for any information leading to his whereabouts. It was eventually discovered that Jack had fled to Turkey and then moved to Georgia. British media discovered his residence in Georgia, revealing that he was living in dire conditions. He wanted to appeal his sentence, and eventually, a lawyer suggested he go on television to share his side of the story. Jack consistently claimed that he did not remember the events of that night. His memories were vague. In every statement, he mentioned that he only recalled how Charlotte switched places with him on the boat and took his seat, after which the accident occurred. In the interview Jack prepared, he was more open about what transpired, yet he still blamed Charlotte for her death. He refused to accept any responsibility and instead spread misinformation to the media. Jack then surrendered to the Georgian police. He believed he could contest his extradition with the assistance of a lawyer who claimed his innocence. He also hoped to have his conviction overturned. However, he was extradited back to the UK to serve his 6-year prison sentence for the manslaughter of Charlotte Brown. Charlotte's mom expressed her deep sorrow, saying that words cannot capture how incredible her daughter was. She described Charlotte as her best daughter and closest friend. She wants Jack Shepherd to understand that while he enjoys his life with his family, she struggles to find joy in her own life. She shared that the experience has been overwhelmingly painful and it's impossible to fully convey the suffering her family endured. Hello again, true crime fans. We've got another mysterious case to explore. The case of Roni Reuter. On the morning of Thursday, October 4, 2007, neighbors of Roni heard heart-wrenching screams and loud bangs coming from her apartment. Alarmed, they called 911 and requested authorities to investigate. The police arrived immediately, and when no one came to open the door, they forced their way inside. In the kitchen, they found a woman lying face down, wearing body armor, with wounds to her head, arms, and pregnant belly. It appeared she had tried to shield her unborn child by covering her stomach with her hands, causing both her hands and stomach to be injured. There were 2 wounds to her abdomen, indicating that the baby was the main target of the attack. The attacker then inflicted injuries to the back of her head. Tragically, both she and her unborn child were dead. The brutality of the crime left the police deeply shaken, questioning who could commit such a horrific act against a pregnant woman. A forensic investigation uncovered a spent 9mm cartridge case and 5 unused cartridges near the body. There were no signs of forced entry, robbery, or sexual assault. ruling out a random attack or burglary. This led investigators to believe the murder was personal and premeditated. It seems that Roni has a dangerous enemy who has harmed her. Police theorize that the attacker attacked Roni as she was preparing to leave the apartment to go to work, ambushing her when she opened the door. Detectives interviewed her neighbors, hoping to find witnesses or valuable leads. The neighbors reported hearing sounds resembling gunshots, leading authorities to suspect the killer used a silenced weapon. A neighbor reported seeing a skinny African-American teenager wearing a hooded sweatshirt, walking up the stairs to Roni's door at around 7:00 a.m., shortly before the incident. Later, another neighbor saw this person running out of the house, get into a small black car, and drive away from the parking lot. Police reviewed surveillance footage from cameras near the house. The footage captured a black car, likely a Volkswagen, arriving at 7:04 a.m. and leaving at 7:55 a.m., aligning with the time frame of the murder. However, the driver of the car has not yet been identified. Inside Roni's purse, investigators discovered a mysterious letter. The letter referenced Sean, the father of her unborn child, and claimed to have uncovered details about him. It alleged that Sean had romantic relationships with women from various countries, listing the names and phone numbers of 16 women he had affairs with. The letter also mentioned Roni's pregnancy, stating that Sean did not want the baby. Detectives suspected the murder was linked to Roni's pregnancy and believed Sean might have crucial information. The teenager seen near the house became the primary suspect, and both he and the black car were placed on a wanted list. Meanwhile, investigators began looking into Roni's social relationship to determine if she had any enemies. She was born in the small town of Potosi, Wisconsin. She met Sean at a charity event in Wisconsin, and the two quickly fell in love. After completing college, she moved to Deerfield, Illinois, a wealthy Chicago suburb with a population of 20,000. At the time of the murder, Roni was 42 years old, lived alone in her condominium. She was 7 months pregnant, eagerly preparing for the arrival of her first child, a baby girl she planned to name Skylar. The father of her child was Sean, 45, her partner of 17 years. Despite dating for many years, they did not marry or live together. Sean, a former Chicago Bears football player, was questioned by detectives for 10 hours. He shared how much he loved Roni and was looking forward to their child's birth. Roni deeply loved him, but Sean's feelings were more complex. He admitted to detectives that he had multiple affairs, which strained their relationship. He said that Roni knew about his infidelity, and it had caused her to grow distant from him. Despite this, he insisted he was excited to become a father. He appeared heartbroken over the tragic deaths of Roni and their unborn baby, and his emotions seemed genuine. Additionally, his strong, athletic build did not match the description of the thin teenager a neighbor claimed to have seen. Sean told the police that he had overslept that morning, he waking up at 9:15 a.m. and then went to a barbershop for a haircut. This alibi was confirmed by the barbershop administrator. However, the barbershop was close to Roni's house, just a 10-minute walk from her home, which made the detectives suspicious. They considered the possibility that Sean might have killed Roni or orchestrated the crime by hiring someone else. Despite his alibi, investigators did not eliminate him as a suspect and continued looking into his potential involvement. They questioned Sean's friends to evaluate whether he was capable of murder, his relationship with Roni, and whether he truly wanted the child. Sean's close friends have strenuously denied that he committed the crime, insisting that he was delighted to be a father, despite his relationships with other women. When detectives visited Sean's home for a follow-up interview, they discovered parenting books and baby items, indicating that he was preparing for fatherhood. During the interview, police asked who he thought might be responsible for the crime. He listed 16 women he had recently been involved with, and emphasized one name in particular, Monika Kurowska. Sean said that Monika, a fitness model from Poland, was someone he had dated while living in Europe. Their relationship ended a year ago, but Monica couldn't accept the breakup and began stalking him. She traveled to the United States and started following him. One night, she came to his apartment complex, ringing all the doors, including those of his neighbors and his own. When he stepped outside, he discovered a broken window and noticed Monica had blood on her hand. He found her behavior very worrying and dangerous, so he took out a restraining order against her. Sean suspects that Monica is the one who sent letters to Roni and his other lovers. These letters caused conflict between him and Roni. He suspects Monica because she follows him and knows all his secrets. In addition, the letters contain common errors in people who are just learning to speak English, like Monica. Even his mother received such a letter. Detectives became interested in Monica and eventually located her. During questioning, Monica denied any involvement in Roni's death, claiming she had an alibi. She was at work on the morning of the murder. The police confirmed her alibi. Monica shared a slightly different account of events. She admitted traveling to the USA to see Sean, hoping to win him back. Upon arriving at his home, she discovered him with another woman. In a fit of anger, she knocked hard on the window and accidentally broke it. Following this incident, she ended her relationship with Sean and claimed it was the last time she saw him. She also denied sending letters to Roni or Sean's mother, but the police remained skeptical of her story and continued to view her as a suspect. Despite their efforts, the investigation stalled. They suspect both Sean and Monica, as each had a motive to harm Roni, but both had alibis. No other suspects emerged. Then, the case took an unexpected turn. Police continued to question all of Roni and Sean's relatives. During the investigation, an acquaintance of theirs expressed suspicions about Marnie Yang, who was said to be obsessed with Sean. Investigators learned that Marnie had been in a relationship with Sean. The two had met 6 years earlier at a Chicago Bears convention, and Sean later reached out to her for help with real estate. Marnie, a realtor, had facilitated several real estate transactions for him. Marnie, single mother of 3 children, worked multiple jobs to make ends meet, including as a realtor, a waitress, and even photographer. Over time, she grew close to Sean, and their relationship continued up until Roni's murder. It was later revealed that they had slept together the day before the crime. This led investigators to scrutinize Marnie more closely. After speaking with her family and friends, they concluded that Marnie was obsessed with Sean. She viewed him as her possession and wouldn't leave him alone. When she discovered he had other relationships, she became furious. Her jealousy drove her to want he all to herself, believing he should belong only to her. She calls him her boyfriend, despite the fact that their relationship was short and fleeting. Detectives questioned Marnie, but she firmly denied any involvement in the crime. Despite this, she was unable to provide an alibi for the time of the murder. She claimed she was at home with her children, but the lack of evidence to support this made her the primary suspect. Detectives believe Marnie fits the description of the person they are looking for. With her petite build, she could easily be mistaken for a teenager if she was wearing a sweatshirt and hood. After obtaining a search warrant for the home, police discovered several important clues. Upon examining Marnie's computer, they discovered she had access to Sean's email and had been secretly monitoring his messages. Among the emails, they found letters from Monica to Sean written in broken English. Marnie had mimicked Monica's writing style, including the grammatical errors. She sent anonymous letters to several women involved in Sean's life, such as Roni and his mother. These letters contained accusations about Sean's relationships, and investigators concluded that her intention was to frame Monica as the main suspect. However, her plan ultimately failed. The police discovered a broken computer hard drive and several bank statements in Marnie's trash. The bank statements showed that she had hired a private investigator to collect detailed information about all the women in Sean's life, including their full names and addresses. Inside Marnie's apartment, investigators found postal receipts with the addresses of Roni and several other women who had received anonymous letters. It also came to light that Marnie owned a gun. In September 2005, she was stopped at the airport for purchasing and transporting 2 pistols and 200 rounds of ammunition. Although she provided the required paperwork, the weapons were declared and shipped to Chicago. Marnie's former lover, who was a deputy sheriff, confirmed that she owned multiple pistols and was highly skilled at shooting. One of her guns was a 9mm pistol, the same type used to kill Roni, though this particular weapon was never located. Investigators also learned that Marnie had attempted to construct her own silencer. Her bank statements revealed she had purchased a book titled How to Make a Disposable Silencer, along with a hacksaw and other materials from Home Depot. It can be used to make a disposable muffler. Detectives questioned Marnie about the evidence they had gathered. She said she bought the book as a joke gift for a friend and insisted she did not own a 9mm pistol or have any involvement in the crime. Despite her denials, 40-year-old Marnie was arrested and charged with the first-degree murder of Roni and her unborn child, based on the circumstantial evidence. The prosecution argued that Marnie's actions were driven by jealousy. She was infatuated with Sean and obsessed with keeping him to herself. To eliminate her rival, she sent anonymous letters to other women in Sean's life, causing many of them to leave him. However, Roni stayed. Although upset with Sean, Roni maintained their relationship, especially since she was carrying his child, a child he deeply wanted. Marnie doesn't want this child to be born because she knows that it might cause Sean and Roni to become more attached. Marnie's primary objective was to kill both the child and Roni. During the trial, witnesses familiar with Marnie testified about her extreme obsession with Sean and the drastic actions she took for his attention. They revealed that she had hacked into Sean's email account, read his correspondence with other women, and angrily deleted messages before he could see them. When she discovered emails from a woman named Monica, she devised a plan. Marnie, in Monica's writing style, sent an article exposing Sean from an anonymous email account with many errors. She spent the entire day talking about Sean, causing her colleagues to become concerned about her behavior. At the trial, even Marnie's daughter, Emilian, testified against her mother. Emilian, 20, expressed concern about Marnie's erratic behavior and obsession with Sean, which seemed to have driven her out of control. Sean also took the stand, detailing his tumultuous relationship with Marnie. He described their relationship as intense, but revealed that Marnie became deeply upset when she found out about other women in his life. She tried every way to keep him, but the obsession in her actions eventually drove him away. Sean said he had been planning to break up with her. When asked whether he believed Marnie could have murdered Roni, who was pregnant, he hesitated and expressed doubt. The prosecution's key witness was Christy Passion, a friend of Marnie's. Christy testified that Marnie had been reading Sean's emails and frequently expressed dissatisfaction with his relationships with other women. In the summer of 2007, Marnie confided in Christy about her frustration over Sean dating other women and even mentioned plans to kill him. At the time, Christy took it as a joke and assumed she was simply venting. However, when Marnie discovered that Roni was pregnant, her focus shifted. She saw Roni as her main rival and became determined to eliminate Roni's at any cost. She told Christy about her plans to kill Roni instead of Sean, believing this would allow her and Sean to be happy together. Christy once again paid no attention to this, thinking it was just Marnie's imagination. Marnie later admits to Christy that she brought the weapon to Roni's apartment, but could not bring herself to do it. This confession makes Christy nervous, but Christy tries to comfort her and stop her from acting on her emotions. The day before the murder, she asked Christy to read her fortune to see if she would succeed in killing Roni. As an experienced tarot reader, Christy laid out the cards, and the one Marnie chose suggested success. Obsessed with the idea of killing Roni, the pregnant woman, Marnie ignored Christie's pleas and remained determined to carry out her plan. Christie later contacted Marnie, and they arranged to meet. During their conversation, Christie secretly wore a recording device, and the recording was later used as evidence. At this meeting, Marnie confessed to killing Roney, explaining the details of the crime. She revealed that she had disguised herself by wearing a wig, dark makeup, and gloves to avoid leaving any evidence. Marnie said she knocked on Roney's apartment door, and when Roney opened it, she drew her weapon and entered the house. She acted quickly, attacked Roney before Roney could scream. She admitted to being cautious, ensuring she didn't touch anything in the apartment and keeping her gloves on to avoid leaving traces. Marnie also described renting a black car, using a disposable phone, and then throw away the murder weapon, wig, gloves, and clothing in separate trash bins. She planned the murder meticulously so that it could not be detected, but Christie would testify against her. The recorded conversation became the prosecution's most compelling piece of evidence during the trial. The police investigation showed that Marnie's work computer had directions to Roney's house saved. They also confirmed that she rented a black Volkswagen on October 3. The vehicle's route was tracked from the rental location to Roney's apartment and back. However, the defense argued that there was no physical evidence that Marnie was at the scene, including DNA, fingerprints, or phone records. The case was based largely on circumstantial evidence in Christie's testimony. The defense wanted to discredit Christie by emphasizing her dubious background. They revealed that she had once claimed to be a psychic in the U.S. Army and said she was the sole survivor of a mission in the Middle East. However, it was later proven that she had fabricated her military service and had never even been in the Middle East. She had lied to enhance her qualifications for the role. The defense argued that Christie's testimony was unreliable and accused the police of falsely assigning blame to Marnie for the murder. The defense argued that there was no concrete evidence against Marnie, other than circumstantial evidence and recordings made under duress. The lawyer argued that Marnie confessed out of fear and in an attempt to protect her children, as her eldest son was under suspicion. Furthermore, an unidentified fingerprint was discovered on the door handle of Roney's apartment. The lawyer emphasized that the fingerprint did not belong to Marnie and that the police had failed to determine who it belonged to. The prosecutor acknowledged the existence of the fingerprint, confirming it was not in any database. However, they contended that the print could have been left by anyone passing by and was not necessarily linked to the crime. Marnie was convicted of 2 counts of first-degree murder for killing Roney Reuter and Roney's unborn child. She received 2 life sentences without parole. She and her lawyers opposed the sentence and filed an appeal, but it was denied. Marnie later claimed that she deliberately confessed to the murder to Christie to protect her son and stop people from bothering her. However, no one believed her explanation. Why would she include so many specific details about the murder if they weren't true? This makes no sense. The defense team argued that the black car seen on surveillance footage was not the Volkswagen that Marnie had rented. They also stated that a man had informed the police he had stolen Marnie's gun months before the murder, meaning she did not possess a gun at the time. Additionally, the murder weapon was never recovered at the crime scene. Fingerprints belonging to someone else were found, and they did not match Marnie's or any family member's fingerprints. The lawyer pointed out that male DNA was discovered on the cartridges at the crime scene, but it did not match Marnie's DNA and instead belonged to an unidentified man. The defense stressed that forensic analysis of the shooting angle indicated the attacker was taller than Marnie. Crucially, new CCTV footage from a hair salon showed Sean arriving for a haircut much later than he had claimed during police questioning. The footage revealed that he arrived at 10 a.m. on the day of Roney's murder, and she was killed before 8 a.m. Sean had previously told police he slept until 9:15 a.m. that morning, but evidence showed he had already sent a message to Roney and made several phone calls by 8:50 a.m. This video exposed inconsistencies in Sean's timeline, suggesting he could have had enough time to commit the murder. While the defense suspects Sean of being the perpetrator, they have not yet succeeded in having the case reopened. Marnie is still in prison and maintains her innocence. Sean, a former Chicago Bears player, played for the team for 11 seasons from 1984 to 1994, including their Super Bowl win in 1985. Having overcome his struggles in the United States, he now lives in London, United Kingdom, where he works as an NFL analyst for Sky Sports, a British sports channel, and regularly shares his expert analysis on weekly broadcasts. Welcome back, detectives. Let's dive into another horrible case. The case of Carrie Ann Jopek. Carrie Ann Jopek was born on August 17, 1968, in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, a large city with a population of over 500,000. Her parents, Carolyn and Robert, divorced when she was very young. Shortly after, her mother remarried a man named Frederick Toussaint. The family lived in downtown Milwaukee along with 2 daughters, the youngest of whom was named Maggie. Carrie grew up in a loving family and had a close relationship with Frederick, whom she considered her biological father. She did not know of her biological father's existence, as he did not communicate with her. Carrie was well educated and had everything she needed. She was friendly and kind, which helped her make many friends, including older teenagers. However, during her teenage years, Carrie's personality began to change, leading to conflicts with her mother and stepfather. When she discovered that Frederick was not her biological father, she became very angry with her parents. She often used this information against him in arguments. Some relatives described Carrie as stubborn, while others thought she was simply going through a challenging period in her life, especially since she was only 13 years old at the time. On March 15, 1982, Carrie was allowed by her parents to stay overnight at her friend Marcia's house. Since both girls were in 7th grade, they went to school together the next morning, March 16. However, because they were in different classes, they could only see each other at lunchtime. Carrie was upset because her teacher had reprimanded her for arguing with another student who had spilled paint on her. The teacher then contacted Carrie's parents to report Carrie's behavior and truancy. The teachers suggested that Carrie's mother pick her up after school to discuss her actions. However, Carrie's house was close enough to the school, so her mother allowed Carrie to walk home by herself. Carrie was upset. She knew her mother and stepfather would probably scold her, so she didn't want to go home. Her friend comforted her, and they parted ways after school. Although reluctant, Carrie had to go home because she lived only a few blocks from school. Normally, it would only take her 3 minutes to walk home, but that day, she never returned. It is important to note that the 1980s in America were generally a safe time. People trusted each other, and crime rates were low compared to today. Additionally, the incident occurred in a crowded area where everyone knew each other, so no one thought it was strange for a 13-year-old girl to walk home from school alone. Carrie did not come home. Carolyn waited for her at home and then went out to look for her. Carolyn thought that Carrie had stopped to visit a friend on the way home and would be back soon. It is important to note that they could not contact Carrie because cell phones had not yet been invented. As the night wore on, Carolyn grew increasingly concerned. She set out again to look for her daughter. First, she went to see Carrie's best friend, Robin, who lived across the street. Unfortunately, no one in Robin's house had seen or heard from Carrie since school ended. Next, Carolyn contacted Marsh, who had spent the night with Carrie. However, Marsh did not see Carrie after she left. Eager to help, Carrie's friends joined the search and began checking with neighbors and classmates who might have seen her after school, but no one had any information. By 11 p.m., a search party of local volunteers who knew the family was formed. Many neighbors, friends, and acquaintances took to the streets to patrol the area and ask questions. Unfortunately, they could not find any information about the Carrie. They decided to wait for Carrie until the next morning. On March 17, when the girl still had not returned home, Carolyn went to the police station to report her missing. By then, the Carrie had been missing for almost a day, prompting police to act quickly, as the situation could be serious. Initially, the primary theory was that Carrie had run away, as she was known to be a difficult teenager who sometimes skipped classes and often spent the night at friends' houses. Police thought that Carrie was simply spending time with friends. However, after interviewing all her friends, they realized this was not the case. None of them had seen Carrie after school, leading them to conclude that something must have happened to her on her way home. They then began questioning residents living along her route that day, but these inquiries yielded no useful information. None of the residents had seen Carrie or noticed anything unusual. The police discovered that Carrie had been upset with her family after learning that her stepfather was not her biological father. Police believed this revelation might have driven her to search for her biological father, whom she could have gone to see that day. By this time, a day had passed since Carrie left school, and there was still no news about her. The police located her biological father, Robert, who lived in a different area of Malak, hoping she might be with him. Unfortunately, when they contacted him, their hopes were dashed. Robert explained that he had been at work all day the previous day and had not seen Carrie. A thorough inspection was carried out at the house of the Carrie. Police searched through all her belongings for clues, but found nothing significant. Consequently, the search for the missing person continued. A day after her disappearance, there was still hope that the teenager was alive. However, the critical window for finding a missing person is 48 hours, after which the chances of a successful rescue decrease significantly. Therefore, the police needed to act quickly. During the investigation, the police focused on Johns, who lived just a few houses away from Carrie's family. John was 17 at the time and had developed a close relationship with Carrie. The police learned that he had a rebellious personality and a history of legal trouble, including convictions for petty theft and selling marijuana. Despite their 4-year age difference, John showed an interest in Carrie, which raised concerns. The police decided to investigate further and brought John in for questioning. John adamantly denied any involvement in Carrie's disappearance, claiming that he had not even seen her that day. The police were unable to gather any useful information during their questioning, and there was no solid evidence against John. As a result, he was released. The police then turned their attention to her stepfather, Frederick. In these cases, the perpetrator was often someone close to the victim, and cases involving stepfathers were not uncommon, which added to their interest in him. The police looked closely at her family, especially the relationship between Carrie and Frederick. They discovered that the two had recently been fighting, a change from their previous relationship. Frederick attributed the turmoil to Carrie's adolescence, believing that her hormones had made her more irritable and prone to anger over small matters. Despite this, he maintains that he would never harm her. An anonymous witness reported some details regarding her stepfather, Frederick. They mentioned that the day after Carrie went missing, Frederick poured a new concrete slab in the backyard. The witness suggested that this may have been Frederick's way of disposing of the body by burying it underneath the concrete slab. This information seems suspicious and should be investigated. The concrete slab was examined using ground-penetrating radar, and no suspicious voids were detected. When the area beneath the slab was excavated, it was found to be empty. The yard was well maintained, showing no signs of recent digging. The police decided to conduct a second round of questioning with the Carrie's friends, focusing on the possibility that she might have run away with a boyfriend. Although Carrie never mentioned having a boyfriend to her parents, the police speculated that she may have kept this relationship secret. However, her friends firmly denied this possibility, insisting that Carrie was not in a relationship with anyone. The police tried to collect evidence, but it is important to note that forensic science in the 1980s was not as advanced as it is today. At that time, there was no DNA testing, trackable cell phones, cameras, or GPS technology. This made finding evidence more difficult. As a result, the police could not find any clues. Carrie seemed to have disappeared without a trace. Lack of evidence then caused the case to stall. The police did not have a strong motive for Carrie's abduction, nor could they find a suspect. To raise public awareness of their daughter's disappearance, Carrie's parents turned to the media for help. They appealed to anyone with information about Carrie to come forward, but still, no leads came. The investigation was stalled due to lack of evidence. More than a year later, on September 2, 1983, a mysterious body was found in the John family home. The contractor was repairing the back porch. He leveled the ground and dug up a significant amount of dirt. While doing so, he noticed a foul odor coming from a pile of disturbed dirt. Upon inspection, he discovered human remains. The contractor immediately called the police. Everyone believed the remains to be those of Carrie. The body was then subjected to dental records analysis to determine the identity of the remains. All members of John's family were questioned. During his police interview, John denied any involvement and requested a lawyer. A year earlier, the police had lacked substantial evidence to charge or detain him, so they released him but continued to view him as a suspect. The remaining members of John's family have denied any involvement in the murder. The medical examiner investigated Carrie's cause of death and discovered severe injuries to her head and neck. She had significant internal bleeding with lacerations on her left side. These injuries suggested that she had been attacked by someone else, leading to the case being classified as a homicide. Unfortunately, the autopsy was unable to provide enough information to determine whether rape had occurred. Carrie's body was found in her friend John's backyard, but this does not mean that he was responsible for her death or that he buried her there. Witnesses said that on the day she disappeared, there was a party at John's house. Police had to piece together the case from scratch, with few clues to follow. And so much time had passed since the party that it was difficult for those who were there to remember what happened. Several teenagers were interviewed about the party at John's house. Some claimed they were there but could not remember any details. Others said they had only heard about the party and were not actually there. John claimed he did not organize any events that day, and police found no evidence to contradict his statement. 4 days after Carrie's body was discovered, police received a new lead. A witness identified Jose Ferreira, a 16-year-old boy who lived next door to Carrie. He was seen in John's backyard when Carrie's body was discovered, which raised some suspicion. The police decided to pursue the lead and invited Jose to the police station for questioning. Jose denied any involvement in Carrie's death or disappearance. Jose knew her well and was friends with her, so he was very upset when he discovered her body in the backyard. He claimed that he did it to honor his old friend. Jose's story seemed credible. He was also questioned about a party at John's house on the day Carrie went missing, but he said it never happened. The police had no evidence against Jose, so they had to release him after questioning. Friends described Jose as friendly and cheerful, and no one believed he would hurt Carrie. They spent a lot of time together and were close friends. The investigation continued, but no leads were found. The case hit a dead end. It wasn't until 33 years after Carrie's murder that the investigation made any progress. On October 11, 2015, a man contacted a journalist to confess to the murder. His name was Jose Ferreira. In addition to contacting the journalist, he called the hotline and admitted to killing 13-year-old Carrie Ann Jopek years earlier. He also confessed to his wife about the crime. Journalists and switchboard operators were stunned by his confession and immediately notified the police. At the same time, Jose's wife learned of his crimes and went to the nearest police station to report him. Jose was 50 years old at the time. The police reviewed the case file. Despite Jose's confession, the police were in no hurry to arrest him. 2 days after his telephone confession, Jose turned himself into the police station and gave a detailed account of the events of 33 years ago. His sudden actions and confession were because he believed it would prevent his wife from getting a divorce. This statement puzzled the police. Jose said that on the day of the incident, Carrie returned home from school. She noticed a party going on at John's house. She wanted to avoid going home where she would face punishment, so she decided to join the party. At the party, she met Jose and they engaged in conversation. Then they went down to the basement together to find some wine. On the way down to the basement, he kissed her, and she agreed. As they walked down the stairs to the basement, Carrie suddenly changed her mind and said she wanted to leave. In a fit of rage, he pushed her, causing her to lose her balance and fall down the stairs, resulting in a broken neck. In a moment of loss of control, he raped her, not knowing that she had died from the fall. His actions were classified as sexual assault and use of force. He defended himself by claiming that he had loved Carrie. He felt offended by her decision to leave, but he insisted that he did not want her to die. He panicked and dismissed the incident as an accident. Jose feared going to jail and ruining his life. He seized the opportunity during a lively party when no one noticed his presence in the basement. He needed to dispose of the body quickly to avoid being seen. Jose hid the body, and when night fell, he took a shovel and dragged Carrie into the backyard. In the dark, he quietly dug a hole and buried her. He believed that his plan had gone smoothly and that no one had seen him. However, the police were baffled by his story. They found it hard to believe that at such a crowded party, no one had noticed them together, and no one had noticed him digging the hole and burying Carrie. The police suspected that Jose might have had an accomplice, but he adamantly denied that anyone else was involved. Carrie's family said that Jose often visited them and was present at the farewell and burial. Carrie's mother remembered that Jose had mentioned being haunted by Carrie's ghost, which surprised them, but they ignored it at the time. While this could have been a warning sign, no one thought that the killer could be one of the friendly people in the neighborhood. Jose later revealed that Carrie's spirit had haunted him for years, making it impossible for him to live a normal life. This ultimately contributed to his decision to confess to the crime to ease his conscience. During the trial, the prosecutor asked for Jose to be convicted of second-degree murder. The defense argued that the case was manslaughter. Initially, bail was set at $200,000, but Jose then began to recant his confession. The prosecution's case relied heavily on Jose's confession. It would have been difficult to convince the jury of his guilt without any evidence. Ultimately, the prosecution offered a plea deal. In March 2017, Jose Ferreira agreed to plead guilty to sexually assaulting Carrie, which reduced his prison sentence to 7 years. The final sentence was handed down 35 years after Carrie was murdered. In 2022, Jose was released from prison and moved to the nearby town of Glendale, Wisconsin. He was listed in a police database as a potential sex offender and placed on supervision. Carrie's family expressed outrage that the man who murdered and raped a 13-year-old girl was released after only 7 years. He now lives a quiet life, as if nothing had happened, and as if he had not taken an innocent life.